Hello everyone, welcome back. In the previous videos, we have successfully built our virtual assistant. If you have not watched it, I suggest you watch it. Now, we will understand how to build an API. As an API stands for Application Programming Interface. It is a collection of communication protocols and subroutines used by various programs to communicate between them. A programmer can make use of various API tools to make its program easier and simpler. In essence, an API acts as a communication layer, or the name says, an interface that allows different systems to talk to each other without understanding exactly what each other does. First, let's understand about Flask. As it is a web application framework written in Python and is often referred to as a micro framework. It is designed to keep the core of the application simple and scalable. So, let's begin our journey by understanding about CRUD operations and then build a registration form. It's exciting, right? So, let's get started. So, we have successfully built our first project, which is a virtual assistant. You can include much more conditions in it, such as we have made it to just greet us, we have made it to send an email, we have made it to open a web browser, tell current time. We have also made it to scrape the data from a web by using requests and beautiful soup. Now, let's understand the other important concept, which is important in any programming language to build any application. You see the term API, because yes, so in this project we are going to build an API in Python by using a very well-known framework, which is Flask. So first, let's understand what is an API and why do we need to build an API and what made Python to be much easiest. Because when you go for Java, PHP, to run any application, we need to have an API. Because if you see the symbols over there, you see the shopping cart, you see music symbol, messaging, playing video, Wi-Fi, games, everything, right? Yes, because let me make it simple. API stands for Application Programming Interface. To make it more simple, when you're using any application on your mobile phone, what does that application connect? First, application will connect to the browser, because you cannot use an application offline, right? To send money, you need to have internet. To just watch a movie, you need to have Netflix or Prime. You just need to have internet and data in your mobile phone. It's simple, right? Even to play some games, you can play it offline, but they need to ask you to enable with an internet. That's why you need to download some additional packages. In the same way, when you use an application on your mobile phone, first the app connects to the internet and it sends data to the server, right? What does that server do? Then server retrieves that data, interprets it and performs the necessary actions, and it generally sends back to your phone. That means whenever you're hitting any web application or using any mobile app, you are requesting something, you are getting some response. Request and a response, right? So to make it more simple, API is like a waiter in a restaurant. What does waiter do? Because you go to a restaurant, you want something, you just need to order. You can't go to kitchen and tell the chef, right? You want this order. You will sit there, you'll ask for the menu. Then waiter comes, waiter will take your order, whatever you are requesting, and waiter will give that thing to the kitchen, because your kitchen is part of the system that will prepare your order. So your waiter is like a communication layer acting between your system, that is chef, and the customer. So between you and your chef, he is acting like a communication layer. So he'll work continuously, right? He'll go to kitchen, tell your order, and the kitchen will prepare your order, and then waiter comes to you and he'll deliver your order. He'll goes on, he'll does the same thing until and unless the hotel is open. In the same way, when you are using any mobile application or any web application, like playing games, watching movies, doing some transactions and anything. Even if you want to book a train ticket, what happens? You can book it in Paytm or you can do it in GPay, but automatically they will connect to IRCTC, because IRCTC is the main database where they are having all the train details. So they need to communicate. So this will they will just request it. They provide an API and they'll accept it. They'll just make the request and you can see the details over there. That is the reason you book train ticket to any other app. Again, you need to log into IRCTC. Without having IRCTC credentials, your train ticket is not confirmed. So that is how APIs are really working in real-time scenarios. That is a very simple. So always remember, API is like a waiter in a restaurant. That's how he just comes to the customer, takes orders from the chef or the system, something like we are requesting and we are getting a response. So that is how it is a collection of communication protocols and subroutines by various programs. So that is the reason, even if you're searching for flights, something like even if you're booking an order, even if you're updating your profile, deleting your profile, everything comes in the part of an API, whether we are using a web app or whether we are using a mobile app. Everything is part of an API. Without API, we cannot do anything. That's where even Facebook, Twitter, Google, they provide an API so that you can build your own applications. That's what, if you are trying to scrape the data from Twitter, where you can analyze the data, that's where Twitter provides an API so that you can analyze it. So that's what sentiment analysis works. If you are able to scrape the data from it, if they provide an API and you can access it, that's what even see WhatsApp business, something like for business purposes, you can see if you are using Razorpay or if you are now booking tickets through any app like Book My Show or anything, they directly contact through WhatsApp telling you that this is your movie time. You might have experienced it, right? Yes, it's all with the help of APIs. So that is how it's simple. And it's nothing but your phone data is completely exposed to the server. No, API provides a layer of security. Your phone data is never fully exposed to the layer. So that's where simple. Instead, they communicate with small packets of data, whatever you're trying to give. So that is where always we have mainly 4 operations, which are generally called as CRUD operations or CURD operations. Even when you're working on database, you create a table, you write data into it, you update it, you delete it. So that's where we call these methods are create, read, update, delete, which are generally basically of getting information and you are trying to update it, you are trying to create new information, you are trying to delete it. So that's where we have these 4 methods, which are get, post, put, delete. These are main methods in an API, and we'll be working on each method in Python. How do we use these HTTP methods? Because these are generally web methods, right? I mean, when you are trying to access any particular web application or mobile app, we are just trying to pass this. So that is how we generally have multiple types of APIs like REST APIs or SOAP APIs, where when I say SOAP, it is simple object access protocol, which is with the enterprise world, where they are having some stricter contract based usage. But generally we have REST APIs where they are for public. That's where we use this something like fetching data from the web, and which is very much easier to our HTTP methods like get, post, put, delete, something like this, which looks like where we are using, this is our client where we are trying to get it. We are asking some information. This API will contact to the database, whatever it is having information, they provide it, and that is written in the format of JSON or XML. So that is how whenever you search any web, something like if you suppose, let me show you a simple example. Suppose if I open my web browser and if I type Amazon, you see, you can, when you're hitting Amazon, you're able to see, you get these information, right? Amazon.in and Prime Video. When I click Amazon.in, you're able to see this information completely. That means you are requesting and this web page changes, right? If you're having any offers, automatically this banner will change. If you're having any festivals now, this automatically banner will change. And when you go to click on this, go to view page source, you obviously have this HTML, CSS styling. And let me just maximize it, because it's all about these stylings, whether it can be of simple HTML, CSS is basic for any web application when you see front end, and when you have the data in the format of JSON. We include Bootstrap over here, we have so many stylings. So stylings can be updated, it only depends upon how do you try to make your web page visible. And when I say JSON data, it is similar to a dictionary, because dictionary is having keys and values. That means, let me show it here where, so here I have first paint and now T response start. See, you see colon here, that is, this is specific your key and your value. Wherever you see such kind of method, that is returning in the format of JSON, because JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's completely, web data is completely in the format of JavaScript object notation or XML format. That is how we are able to see the result on our screen, whether you see mobile app or anything. That's how the general things work with an API. So that is the reason every application you see now is need to have an API so that they get the request, because building a web application, communicating with the server and resulting the data from the database, it's all about with the help of an API. That's where we write APIs, or we dynamically make sure our API communicate. That is where these four methods play a vital role, which is get, post, put, delete. So first let's understand about each one of them. A very simple example I have given about here. Suppose if it is a bike rental app where you are able to book a ride, something like Rapido or any kind of bounce, whether you want to own yourself bike. So you just see whatever the bike you see and the location you see, you just hit enter. Or you go for Rapido, you choose the location, you just choose the location and you see the nearby driver and automatically it will assign. So that's where that is a front-end API, and when you see it is checking the ID, management, storage. That means the location, depending upon the application. If it accesses the location, it accesses the nearby drivers. In the same way, it accesses the location. If you go for Swiggy, nearby restaurants and everything. Then you see that will be contacted to the database, and when it's in the format of web app, you can open the same thing in web application. But most of the applications, suppose if you go for Swiggy, you see the same kind of interface in mobile. But when you go for web application, that will be a bit different. It checks with the nearby restaurants and it allows the, suppose if it go for kiosk, that means you can see each and every information over there and depending on it. So that is how everything is checking with the format of an API. So when it is front end, or whether you see the management and the storage, every application needs to have an API, and that's where it is something like a communication between your server and your client. That is very, very important. So the same thing, if you wanted to build an application using Python, we need to understand how can we use which are some better known packages, let's say, or better known libraries to build an API, which will start with Flask. So first let's understand how do we build an API in Python by using Flask. We will follow very simple methods because we need to directly install Flask. It's not available built-in. We'll first install Flask and we'll see, because Flask is a well-known framework written in Python, and it is one of the popular web framework where people generally call it as micro web framework. When I say micro, it doesn't mean that it is not used to build any application, but the word micro means that your whole web application has to fit into a single Python file. Because when you go for Django, because even with the help of Flask, we have so many applications. You see Netflix, you see Airbnb, you see Reddit, you see Pinterest, you see Twilio. So Pinterest is one of the well-known social media application, right? It is one of the largest site created using Flask. And even if you go for Twilio, so Twilio is basically a cloud communication platform, and Airbnb. So these are all applications built using Flask only. So that's where we generally need to understand, with Flask and with Django, we can just make sure build any applications. So it only depends upon how do we write the logic within it and how do we make sure we build that particular kind of application. So it's all about these four methods. The four methods include get, post, put, delete. So we just need to understand how do we obtain information about a particular resource, how do we create a new resource, how do we update a resource, how do we delete it. So these four operations are generally called as cut. We'll be understanding how do we first install Flask and how do we generally run the application by using Flask. Because when I say micro, it doesn't mean that it is lacking in functionality. It only aims to keep the core simple but extensible. You need to build everything, because when you go for Django, it provides your customized admin panel and it provides you everything. But when you go for Flask, you need to make sure what database to use. You need to take your own decisions. That is the reason, if you are aware of Netflix, when you're trying to make payment, suppose if your free trial is done, if you wanted to make a payment, it will automatically navigate to the web page. It doesn't do the payment in the mobile app. That's where the API is requesting to the server. So that is how these Flask applications are built. And you see, Netflix is one of the main video platform where you can have so much of video storage over there. So that doesn't mean that Flask is allowing only little storage. No, that is wrong. So first, let's understand how do we write a simple application using Flask and how do we run our function not in the local shell but in the browser, because that is nothing but routing. Because if you enter a URL, you are just hitting that and you go to another web page, right? Something like this. So when you open, when I say Amazon, you are in the home page. When you click on mobiles, you see the URL, it is into /mobile phones. So this is how the things differ. That is generally called as routing. Now let's open our IDLE and first install Flask. Then we'll build a simple application build an API using Flask, so that we'll run our application not in the local system but in the browser, because Flask will provide a local URL which is 127.0.0.1 is to 5000. The same way you can test the thing and we can made it to host. And with the same logic, we'll try to build a simple registration form. That is how first you need to understand the definition of an API, and we can, because everything in the world is an API, because API is something like an unsung hero. So we'll build an API now. So first open the command prompt. As we have used the environment, so for this application it's not needed. When we go to building a registration form, we'll build an environment again. We have already created a virtual environment, we'll just go for that. So first we need to go for pip install Flask. When I give pip install Flask, it should automatically download, because you can run Python from your command prompt. So just go for it, pip install Flask, it should automatically be installed. Just make sure your net connection is available, then it is done. So pip install Flask, so automatically Flask will be installed. So you can see that Flask has been installed, and we can see some of the applications. When you see that is being installed with Flask, you can see like Jinja 2, and see, for me it is requirement already satisfied because I have been already using it. But when you go for the first time, it will automatically show, it will just make sure that see Flask in the C user's name and click it's dangerous, Jinja 2, workzug, markup safe. What are all these? Just make sure that we need to first understand what are all of them and what made your Python environment to install such things. Because it's generally, when you go for WSGI, Jinja 2 is a web template where you need to communicate with the markup safe. Just make sure if you want to communicate with your web pages, and markup safe is basically how do you communicate and how do you request the server. So that is the reason it is workzug, markup safe, Jinja 2 templates. These are very, very important when you're communicating with your web page. Because as your code base grows, you are free to make the design decisions. You can implement advanced patterns by using say MySQL or SQL, and that's where this WSGI, that is workzug, that is web interface pattern, where we can just make sure some applications are built very easily. Only when we just have all the supporting files. Even you can go for Python 3 point any version. So better to go for Python 3 version only, because we already have some depreciations for Python 2 version. Now the updates have been stopped for Python 2 version. So, but you can see some of the applications still running in Python 2. That doesn't mean that they are not interested to move to Python 3. It's only that they wanted to make sure they have some dependencies with that. So that is the reason we just need to understand how do we use this. So we have seen here this Jinja 2, because Jinja 2 is basically a template which we need to run with the Flask, because workzug is basically a comprehensive web application library, and this Jinja is basically used for templating language for Python developers. That is something like to create HTML, XML or other markup format. So this Jinja 2 and workzug will communicate with the Flask and make sure that with the help of the markup languages. So that is how the supporting libraries will be installed with Flask. And now when you give pip freeze, you can see all the list of libraries being installed or packages. You can see when you give pip freeze, you can see now Flask within it, A, B, C, D, E, F. Just check in F, you can see the Flask within it along with the Jinja 2. So now we'll just run our first API by using Flask. So first let me open my IDLE and I'll write a very simple code so that we can run the application not in the local shell but in the browser. So for that I'll just create a new file. So file, new file. Then what we'll do is we'll first save it with any name. Make sure you save it in your desktop location instead of root location, because you need to search here. So just I'll save it here. I'll just save with the name first Flask. That means I'm just trying to create a simple Flask application. So for that, I'll just make sure from Flask. So I'll just write first Flask application. So that what we'll do is we'll try to run a simple function, not in the shell, because you should not run that thing in the shell, because your interactive shell will communicate with your Python interpreter only. But we should communicate with our operating system, so that we should run that thing from command prompt. I'll show you the difference. So first let's write from Flask, we just import Flask and we'll create a Flask object. So for that reason, I'll just give the name as app is equal to Flask of, we have seen what do we mean with dunder name, because every Python function, Python program is saved with main function, because as main is very important even in C programming language. This is nothing but we are creating a Flask application object. That means which contains data about the application and also methods that tells the application to perform. So with the help of this variable only, whatever you write, we write C, D, anything, but we will start using this variable where we root the application, where we run the application, only with this name. That's where we use the debugging mode and everything. So it creates a Flask application object, so that it tells, so that, or which it contains the data about the application basically. So which contains data about application and methods. Let me write some very simple way, so that I'll write comment here, or we can just make it by using triple quotes. It's up to you. And these are also methods that tell application to perform, that tell application to do certain task. That's what that certain task will be, where we try to get the information or updated information. That's what we'll be doing it. First, we need to understand how do we create a simple Flask application. So we'll start routing here. So where we need to use the decorator @dot route, ROUTE. That means if you see, when you open a web browser, when you are clicking this particular mobile tab, that means your routing is gone from Amazon.in to, when I say Amazon.in, that's it. I've clicked the logo, you can see the extension reference is equal to navigation logo. That means you can see this is done by the front-end developer who builds with some stylings, whether he may use HTML, CSS is very minimal in any web page, where they go for some JavaScript stylings, and even they can use React and some other Bootstrap libraries. So basically, but when I click a particular tab or a particular icon, it should display to another web page. So that's where the backend framework comes into picture, where we build an API so that our front end and back end gets communicated. That's what we are trying to see now, and that is done by routing. So you can give any routing. So first let's give a simple slash. That means when my application runs, you can see that provides a local URL, and that will be run only in your system. So we just give some simple slash. You can see when you gave slash, it is referring to your root location files. I just close this, and so after we giving routing, that means this is generally called as routing. That is the reason I'm just writing comments at every point, so it will be easier. Now you define a simple function. Whatever your function is, it's up to you. It depends on your interest. Something like you provide a routing like, so I just gave define, my function name is hello. So you write the keyword def and function name is hello, and you give parenthesis. That means you did not define any arguments within it. That is default. There are no arguments in it. If I write something like a equal to 1, that is default argument. Now we just try to give a simple thing, like I just give docstring my first Flask application. That's what my docstring is, because always remember, never ever forget about giving docstrings when you're writing a simple function. In the same way, my function hello should return the same thing I gave. My function is, this is my first Flask application, or something like a demo app, whatever, because this is the response you should see, not in your local system and not in your interactive shell, but in your browser. it is fine. So when you call the function, you could see the result, but this is not the thing now. We are just making it to route at the rate app.route, because app is our Flask object. Now create, because every Python file is saved with main variable. I just write the condition if dunder name, that is if dunder name equal to dunder main, because every Python file is saved with main name and my application should run. So app.run, here we enable a mode called as debug equal to true, because we are making debug is equal to true. That means we are debugging during environment. Because what do you mean by debugging in your programming? That means you are trying to trace out the errors. The same thing, it creates some debugging symbols used to provide metadata about the current executing. If debug is equal to false, it is for deployment to a production server. So we give true or false. So generally debug is equal to true should be given, so that we can try to trace out, because we are running this in the development, because we should go for production, right? Development we are testing. So we just make sure that we run app.run and we provide debug is equal to true. So that's it, because true t is boolean. That means the debugger allows executing the Python code from the browser, because it is just if you want to run any application in the browser, make sure that is hosted in a particular cloud, whether it is your local system. If you take your local system as a server, you should have particular configuration for your RAM and the server, and you should have some security layers. The same way, that is the reason people go for using cloud, AWS, Azure, GCP, Alibaba. You have so many clouds over there. It depends on your cost controlling thing. So that is where our built-in Workzug development server, it provides a debugger, and Jinja 2 is a template where we just try to communicate with the web pages. So that is the reason those Jinja 2 and Workzug environment and its dangerous environment communicating to some other web pages, these are very, very important while we are providing some structure patterns. Now it is fine. Now when we execute this code, because generally you are allowed to run the code in the interactive mode only, but when you execute this, you cannot see the output, because the main reason is we should run this particular script not from our interactive mode but from command prompt. The reason is you are running your application, it should provide you a URL. Your Python interpreter communicating with the environment variables cannot exactly give the URL, because you should directly run from the command prompt. That's where the difference happens when you're running from the Python environment, that is interactive mode, that is C, users and the root location, and directly from the command prompt. You just observe when you hit on run module or function F5, you see restarted and serving with Flask app. What is the app name? First Flask. Environment is production. This is a development server. Do not use it in production deployment. So that is different over there. Debug mode is on, restarting. So it's done. But where is your output? You cannot see it here, right? Because your file is running as a simple script. You should run that thing from your command prompt. So open your Windows Explorer and just go to the location, that is desktop, where your file is. Just type cmd over there. Hit enter. And how do you run the scripts from your command prompt? Just give your Python. The first variable is Python. That's what we have understood. And what is your file name? Just give your file name. My file name is firstflask.py. Hit enter. Then automatically your server will be loaded. This is a production. This is a development server. Do not use it in production deployment. That is different, right? So use a production server for that. That's where, because AWS provides another layers and Azure, because the code remains same, and this pin is different for every environment. I mean, my system and your system is different, and debugging mode is on, and you can see Flask is giving a URL. With this URL, you can see your result. So what do? You copy the URL, go to the web browser and paste the URL over there and hit enter. So you can see this is my Flask application, and if you want, I can just maximize it. Right? That's how you can see whatever the result you gave in your function return, automatically it is giving you the same result. That's what, when you can see the same result in your command prompt, see this is particular location and the request is 200. And even when you just refresh the web page, automatically the request will be fetched and it will take some time to give the result. See, it depends on the environment you are providing, and that is how every application is being run. And if you just restart it, it is giving press Ctrl C. If I give Ctrl C, again the status is different. Now, what we will do is, if I give any other URL, something like /my name, it provides not found. That means you cannot change the Amazon extension, right? Suppose if you give any other URL for the Amazon dot in another extension, it will throw you something like Amazon dot INEFF. Something you gave some wrong extension, it is giving you some different URL, right? That's where it doesn't allow you to navigate to the web page because those are not present, right? That means they request that specific thing that is not found in the server. If you entered manually, please check spelling. That means I want to change this extension. If I run with the same extension, I get my code. And you can see the same request in your command prompt. See, status 200, response is okay, 404, resource not found. Because these are protocols, 200 series, 300 series, 400. These are very, very important. And it depends when you're trying to navigate. See, and the time frame and the date exactly. Now what I'll do is, I'll change the routing in my code. Because I want to just route with my name. That means when I hit /saket, it should provide me with the same result. So I'll just make sure, see, I'll just again give Control C because it has detected some change in our code. That means it is reloading again, and when I just reload the same web page, it will just take some time because with that extension, your result is not fetched because we have changed the code. What we have given /saket. That means with /saket, you should see the result. So I'll give /saket and it should fetch it. If it takes some time, just make sure that you restart the server. That is, just give Control Z to come out of it and just give Control C. It's fine. Now when you see the result over there, you can see the result. But your code, you have stopped running the code, right? If you just make it execute, it will take some time. That means this site can't be reached. That's what you see when you open web page without internet. For the funny thing, right? That same thing happens here. Now run the code again. Python. What is our file name? Firstflash.py. Now you can see the server is running and the same URL but with extension as /saket. I just refresh the web page. Now you should automatically see the same result. What is the result we gave? It should return that this is my first Flask application. There you go. Which taking some time. It's not worry. You just need not worry. Just open another web page again and provide 127.0.0.1 is to 5000/saket. You could see the result over there. In the meanwhile, check the response. If it's any error over there, it's fine, but it should provide you the result. If you are having any issues, that is /saket, and I'll save this and I should see. It's giving you, because I gave 500, it is 5000. That's the issue over there. Then automatically you could see the same result whatever you have given. It's taking some time. No worries, it will just fetch you the result, depends upon your environment, and clearly you could see the result giving it over there. So when you hit the URL with /extension, you could see it. Which fine, you just restart it again, you could see the result. No worries, there is no error in the code. You can just make sure you come out of it and hit enter. That is Python. Our extension is, our file name is first Flask. There you go. There is no error in the code. If you have error in the code, automatically it will return the error first. It will not make it open the web page. It is just taking time in the sense that means, see, now we got it. Because we are just restarting it again, it takes some time. That's what happens when the code is being changed by the applications, because they ask you to restart. The same thing is happening here. So that is how we have just changed the routing, and you can see whenever you change the result and when you just refresh the web page, automatically you can see the status over there. When you hit every time the web page is run, you can see the status being changed here, and if you change it to another web page or open another document, automatically the result changes. So that is how we have just made the routing, and when I just give Control C, see, every time I have gave 2 clicks over there, that means 2 times we are getting the same result. So that is how we have clearly made our first Flask application. That is, we have built a simple API using Flask where we have just provided our routing. And now what we will do is, we can also create our own variables, so that with the extension, we can make our Flask application to run, and even we can make it to host in our public APIs. I mean public URL. That means if you can provide that URL to your friend so that he can open it. But now he cannot do it because this is running in our local system. Local system is different and running the same thing in public URL, because you can open amazon.com anywhere, right? But it doesn't mean that if you build an application in your local system, you should buy a domain, you should host it. That's where the difference happens. Now, let's try to make sure we create and we add a variable to our URL section and make sure that that is executed in the browser. Along with that, we'll host our Flask application on Ngrok, which is a tunneling server which is free to use. You can use that variable. You can give that URL to any person within a given specified time. He can open the same result. So that is how. While testing also, if you check the same thing, it doesn't work out, right? You should run the same code and make sure you get that URL. So that is how we'll try to add a variable and we'll try to host our Flask application. So we have successfully built our first Flask application where we have provided the routing. We just initially gave slash and we have seen what does our function have returned the same thing, not in the not in the interactive shell. We have seen the result in the browser with the help of a URL. That's where we have seen this routing, and when you change the extension, you can just make it. But now what we'll do is we'll try to add a variable section so that when we add that thing to our function, because we did not give any argument in our function which is hello, but now I'll just try to pass an argument to my function so that that function receives the variable name as a keyword argument. So optionally what we can do, we can try to specify it when we just write the slash with the function with the argument with the argument given in the function, we can just return the result, right? So let's just go for that. That means I am providing another routing here @app.route. It's all about how do you navigate to web pages. Simple, right? When you open a web page, something like if you want to go to mobile section, you click that, you see the results of only mobile phones. The task of the backend programmer is to just make sure you connect the particular web pages. You see, the URL is different here. And if you try to change anything within this, what happens? See, if I just try to remove this and if I try to execute it, if I just remove all of this and if I just execute this, what happens? Looking for something, we are sorry. That's how that specific URL is not found, because how can you give slash mobile phones? Because amazon.in is referring with this navigation. So that is how those are specified URLs for that. In the same way, we'll provide routing for this, where I just mention @app.route, I'll just give slash and I want to pass an argument which is name. So this is my variable name, where generally we use these tags. These are generally called as tags with the help of less than and greater than symbol, which we predominantly use in stylings. This is very, very important. That means we are just trying to pass a variable name. The variable name is written in less than and greater than symbol. So variable name. So that is how we have just passed the argument over there, and the same thing I'll try to define to a function. So my function name will be show name, so that I can give that as an argument here. Show name of, I can pass the argument. What is the argument name? I can give name, because I've just given the same thing in my routing, and I'll pass the same thing over here, and this is nothing but passing an argument. I write it as docstring, so that it is very much essential when you write a docstring, you could see what is that particular function is returning. So never ever forget to just go with this simple basics which you have learned from the beginning. This is very, very important. And then I should return here, where I can just go with the formatted string or anything, because that is a print, that is a string over there. I just go for f string, and what I do is I want the result to should be telling that specifically your name is. So when I use format string, you will replace the variable name in curly braces, right? That's what we have studied, the same thing. If you don't want to use all of them, you can just give string comma variable. It's up to you, because we have learnt already such kind of things. Now the same thing, when I just run with slash Saket, I should see this result, but when I give slash particular name, I should see your name is, right? That's what it is affecting, because if I give slash Saket, it is expecting, and if I give this thing, both are resulting same, right? So just don't get confused with that. Then what we can do is we can just change this, because I'll just execute, because whenever we run this routing, so first let's save this and debug is equal to true, so that whenever we give debug is equal to true, we are debugging during development. So debug is equal to false, that is for deployment to a production server. Always remember that point. So we generally go for giving debug is equal to true whenever we are routing in our development, not in the production, because in production it completely changes. Whenever you are going for production type, we just make sure we do the small changes whenever you are going for. That's where the WSGI Workzone Development Server provides a debugger. That's what, whenever we are installing Flask, we have all those dependencies directly available. Now, I'll open my Windows Explorer so that I can run the particular file from command prompt. So type cmd. The reason is I cannot expect everyone to have the directly desktop available with root C location, because so many people will have their OneDrive being backed up over there. That is the reason. Just choose desktop to your left side and type cmd over there. There you go. You give Python. Now what is your program name? It's basically first Flask. So we give first Flask.py. There you go. It is serving your first Flask app and debugger pin is same. So when you just copy this URL and paste it in the browser, when you paste in the browser, it is giving, this is my first Flask application, because I did not mention any routing over there, automatically it is giving. So when I mention /saket over there, let me just throw it. When I give /saket, your name is Saket, because automatically there is no difference in between in both the programs over there, because you are passing the variable name, right? So to make it more easy, let's just remove this. That is the reason there is no need to pass routing directly. You need to pass with variable name so that you can write that as arguments in your function. Now we will find the difference. You can see there is some change in our code automatically running, and now when you refresh this web page, so just remove all of them. When you execute this, there you go. It shows you this is your first Flask application, because we have just mentioned the same thing in our routing. This is my first Flask application with / as routing. When we pass the variable name, that means whenever you pass anything with an extension with that. If I give /saket, there you go, your name is Saket. And you can trace back the same thing in your command prompt, the request being fetched. If it is not visible, just give Ctrl C. You can just understand how does that is being quit, and just execute once more. You can see the difference, how does that is being executed. Just refresh it. The number of times you hit refresh, the number better you get the get request over there. So that's how you can just understand how does that is being executed. So the only change we have done is we have just make sure that we have given routing. So if you just execute this, restarting with start and press Ctrl C to quit. If I give Ctrl Z, if I give Ctrl C, I'm just coming it out. So just make sure you find the routings over there, because until and unless if I execute this, see, I just came out of it, it already being executed, right? So there is no issues. If I execute once more, if I just give /, this is my first Flask, because already that is being executed. Now if I just close this and if I save it and if I run it in my interactive shell, what happens over there? Just observe it here. Same, serving with Flask, it doesn't provide you any URL, because we are running it from the interactive mode. That is the main difference. So for that reason only, I just made you to run it from your command prompt, that is cmd. So just give Python and throw first Flask. Sorry, I just gave the name as wrong. So python. There you go. You just get the URL, and when you just make it request, you can easily see when you just pass the URL to your web, you just copy the URL, paste it. There you go. This is my first Flask application, and you could see every time you you could see the get request, that is fine. Now what we'll do is, if you just change this, if you just give /saket, you could see your name is Saket. That's how we are past the routing. But now what we can do is, we can make sure that we will get a public URL, because this is where you can see only in your local system, but you cannot observe this thing. Once you close this, it's gone. But now what we can do is, we can use a public tunneling server which is called as Ngrok, so that we'll get a free URL for a particular period of time and we can use it, because Ngrok is one of the very widely used tunneling servers. So when you go for Ngrok, when you just type ngrok, it provides you secure introspectable tunnels to localhost, where mainly for testing purpose it is fine. For testing your chatbot, we have built a virtual assistant, right? You can just make sure you deploy it. That's where we just use only 3 steps. We'll first install ngrok because Python has supporting packages for ngrok combining with Flask. Because Flask will provide a local URL, so that you open the URL in your browser, you can see whatever your function you're giving, that is navigating. But public URL, that is being sent only by ngrok. When you have so many other domains, so many other providers to host your applications, but ngrok is pretty much simpler. Even you go for pricing, he'll tell you, because with the free source, he provides you HTTPS tunnels along with HTTP and 4 tunnels per 1 ngrok process, only 40 connections, only 1 online ngrok process. When you go for paid model, you have some different options over here. $5, $8.25, $12. You can customize your domains, that is reserved domains, and tunnels can be increased. You have all of this. So for that, we'll just install ngrok with Flask. That is, you can give flask-ngrok. Automatically it will show you where you can get this, because it will tell you pip install, because already you already know this, where you can search all the packages with find, install, publish Python packages. You can just type flask-ngrok in this, or you can directly go to the web, because it automatically gives you a simple way to demo our Flask applications from your machine, so that it provides a local. So it makes your Flask app running on localhost to be available over the internet. So that's what we are going to see now. We just install that. So for that reason, I'll just quit this. I'll give pip install flask-ngrok. It should be installed. You should have proper good internet connection. If it is satisfying requirements, it will tell you requirement already satisfied. If you have installed already, if you are for the first time, it will just collect the things, because Cjinja to template and markup safe and workzug, everything is being supported with the Flask. Now, once it is successfully installed, he'll tell in the documentation. So you need not refer any other tutorials. It's very simple. He'll just tell to run with ngrok, whatever the Flask object you have created, and then make sure we run the application. Let's add those 3 lines and make our Flask app to be deployed. That's the main theme of this. So before giving routing and before running this, we just need to give from flask_ngrok, not hyphen, because when I give hyphen, it takes as a separation over there, because you just need to run this ngrok library with Flask, so that we have already installed it. So that's where from flask_ngrok, you need to import run with ngrok. So that's what you can see. Make sure when you are using this for testing, make sure you need to have Wi-Fi, not the LAN connection, because your firewall will block and you need to make so many changes, because whenever you are running ngrok, it will try to make connection with your localhost and it will connect to ngrok server. Again, because API, right, it take requests, it gives you response. So in that time, you have so much of delay and it takes very long time and it may not give you result also. So just make sure you are having Wi-Fi. If you don't have Wi-Fi, you can just make sure hotspot is done, right. Make sure if you are having LAN, connect it to Wi-Fi. Remove the LAN and connect to a Wi-Fi, so that you can run this ngrok. That is main thing you should remember. And even you go for any resources studying about that, you just need to make sure you just need to connect to a Wi-Fi. That is very, very important. Once you made this from flask_ngrok, import run with ngrok, and before routing, just make one change. You need to run the specific application with run with ngrok. You just need to make sure you run the application with ngrok. Whatever the variable you gave for routing, this variable, because we are running the Flask application, we are routing it. We are just routing number of things. That's where the request comes. Get, post, put, delete, which we are trying to understand in the next couple of videos. The same thing. And in the final thing, there is no need of debugging here. You can just give the application should run. That's it. There is no need of providing debugging, because when we give debug is equal to true, that is into we are into for development. When we go for deployment for a production server, it is false. So here, as we are taking a free tunneling server, whenever you run this application, even in your ideally, it will open with a URL. But when you run from command prompt, it opens a tunnel over your command prompt. That's what you're going to observe now. So just make sure once you install Ngrok, you need not have LAN. You shouldn't have LAN connection. Just switch that thing to Wi-Fi. That's the only primitive thing you need to observe. So when I run this code from command prompt, I just open Python, 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 and my program name is firstflash.py. Just observe clearly, you can see a tunnel being coming up over there along with the connections, how many connections being made and the response time, everything. There you go. You see, you observe it clearly. You can see first time if it is closing it out, that means you have successfully installed, and open once again and run from your command prompt. It takes time to reload. That is the reason it has just vanished. But now if I open again, I could see a tunnel being opened up. There you, no need to worry, you can see a tunnel being opened up. There you, ngrok by @reviewable, Control C to quit. There is no command prompt now. This is being overridden, and it tells you, it gives you 1 hour 59 minutes. The version of it is providing you 1 hour 59 minutes. For longer tunnels, you need to sign up the interface, and this is the forwarding URL. Because we can make only limited number of connections. That's what Ngrok will give you. See, 4 tunnels per Ngrok process, 40 connections per minute. It's only one online tunnel. So if you copy this URL, this is your HTTP and this is your HTTP because it is forwarding with the local host. When you copy this, you can see running Ngrok and you can see the traffic on this URL, and when I paste it on the web browser, there you go. When you paste it, you can see you did not give any routing over there. This is the first Flask application, and when you give slash any variable name, you could see your name is Saket. This is secured one, you could see over there, and you can observe the traffic stats also, the number of connections. See, get Saket, get favicon, and traffic stats is available in this particular URL. Copy this, you can forward this to your friend, he can open it. See, he'll provide you. You are using Ngrok without an account, the session will end in 1 hour 28 minutes. You can see the requests over there, and you could see whatever you have typed over there, we could just navigate here. The summary of it, the headers, and what is the raw content and the binary file, everything over there. Whatever we have seen in the command prompt, we could navigate. Let me just minimize this. You could see, right. So now this is the get favicon, the summary, and the summary headers and the raw files, and the status. Next thing you could see here, and with the summary, this is my first Flask application. That's what you can just set the traffic status also. That is the best thing when you go with Ngrok, and you could see until and unless this channel is open, you could see the same thing happening over there, right? So make sure you just see when you refresh this, you could easily navigate, you could easily see the number of times the tunnel is being hitting. You could see the connections over there. When you refresh it, you could see the changes over the number here. That's what it provides you, 40 connections per minute. And even it's better to use secured one. If you run this thing from here, suppose if I close this and if you run the same thing in your shell, you just see it, in your interactive mode, it provides you a tunnel like this. It provides you the same result, and again the tunnel is being changed. The tunnel ID is being changed. If I refresh the previous web page, you see the tunnel is not found. ngrok.io is not found because it is providing you a new tunnel. That's what. You can just share it to your friend and make sure you access the same thing. You just run the same application. You should not close it. Even you use any IDE, that's the same process. So when I give /Saket, you could see your name is because we have just passed the same thing over our routing. Whether you go from your command prompt or whether you go from your system prompt or in your interactive mode, anything, you could get to see the result when you are running Ngrok because it provides your public URLs for testing. That's what even for Raspberry Pi and even for Python applications, anything, we can just use it until and unless this session is running. It's for testing mode, right? You can just use it. You can get the requests over it. You can get the status over this URL because he clearly mentioned you can get the status over this URL. Anyways, you can run in any way. That's how we have hosted our Flask application on Ngrok. So we have understood how to build a simple Flask application. We have also hosted our Flask application on Ngrok, and we have seen some simple differences because you need to follow the same structure, build your own class and create multiple objects. Go for it. If you are having some pretty good interest towards digging into web development side, then Flask is your first preference to start with. Then you can go for Django because that's what we can easily make it. So because these are the well-known Python frameworks when you're trying to build web applications. Now let's try to understand some simple HTTP request methods, and we'll understand how do we use those request methods with some piece of Python codes. That means we write Python code only. That's what we are importing Flask and we are running these things. But first let's understand how does these four main operations, which are generally called as CRUD operations. Even when you're running into database application, you have the same thing. When you go for request methods, because we say HTTP, it is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It defines a set of request methods to indicate that specific action to be performed for a given resource, right? That is the reason it is called as, it is a set of protocols to enable communication between client and server. Request, response, waiter, customer, waiter, kitchen. The same way, customer, server, hitting URLs. That's it. You always remember that point. Client, server, response. That's what API is done. So as these, in that process, you get this HTTP status codes, like when you reload a web page without internet connection, you get 404 error, and if status is okay, 200. We have all these status codes, right? Because that's how you generally go for any programming language. If you are trying to relate that thing with a web page, you need to know the status codes. 200 series, main 200 series is status is okay, and it is 400, that is bad request, and 404 is not found, and it is forbidden. You have all these things. So first, let's understand how do we get a response from the server by understanding first two important methods, where first we try to read an information from the resource. That's where we create a Python object and we convert that thing to JSON data. Let me make it very simple. When you go for post, you are creating. But whatever we have done till now is creating Python objects. But how does that can be converted to JSON object? Because generally, when you go to web data, now if I rerun this, a tunnel is not found, you can close this. That's what we have seen previously. And if you refresh this, you inspect, the previous thing is stored. And when you go to view page source, you have all the stylings over here. And it's a simple styling where you need not have any JSON format. But let me close this. And when you go for this specific web page, and when you go for in view page source, you can just see the status, you can just see the elements, and when you scroll down, all the references and div tags, these are all tags. No worries, when we build a registration form, I'll make you understand what are these tags basically, and how do you refer this. So here, there is nothing to be referenced like JSON script, because if you are having key and values, fetching the details, but we can say observe in this web page. That's what I'm trying to show you the difference. Already this is particularly opened here. Whenever you see that thing in the format of a dictionary, we tell it in dictionary, but in web format, that is JSON data. You see, this is your key and this is your value. This is running the entire script tag. The script tag is closed and the styling function with the help of CSS, right? Now let's understand how do we convert our Python object to JSON object by using a simple library, simple module which is already built in, nothing but JSONify. So Flask provides with a JSONify function also. So for that, let me open my Python file. I don't want to use this file. I'll just create a new file and I'll just name it as understanding or API methods. We'll create multiple files so that it will be easy for us. So now I'll just try to write understanding basically get method. So that for post we'll create, because when I say get, that is nothing but we are obtaining information, getting. When you go for post, it's nothing but you are generally making sure you are creating a new resource or you are submitting data. That's what I have given the same thing in PPT. So first let's go for the practical part. How do you try to get the information? Because generally in the previous program with the first Flask app, we have just gave a routing and we are just making sure that, that's what I clearly mentioned in the PPT also. When you see Flask maps these requests to Python functions and checks if there is a match between the path provided. If the match is found and with a defined function, it will fetch it. That's what the difference is, and now we'll use the same logic here. So first we'll import the modules from Flask. We just write import Flask, and I'll just make sure I write every method with the same program so that I can copy it and we can just make it. That's how general things work. You understand each and every method. Get, post. For put and delete, we'll follow a very good technique where you understand the importance of curl, which is a new command line tool, and that is very, very important when you're digging into development. So because Flask provides with a JSONify function so that it allows us to convert lists and dictionaries into JSON format, because for us it is a list and dictionary, but for web interface, when we try to fetch the data from the web, because when you create a HTML page, automatically you need to have some tags over there, body tag, div tags, and the stylings over there. In the same way, whenever we try to give the routings, we just make sure that is in the JSON format, because it is the language of API. So it provides us with a JSONify function. This is very, very important. It is already present built in, so that we can convert to convert our lists and dictionaries, because generally we already have strings in it. We need not take set, because sets don't allow duplicates. So to convert lists and that is the reason from the beginning itself I am telling, if you might have remembered, dictionaries and lists are versatile data types in Python. That's what we are going to see now, where we'll take an example of making sure we give book entries, we give some entries, some dummy entries we are trying to give, where I just pass some IDs and some values. You can give your own name, where first I'll create a Flask object. I just make sure I create a Flask application by giving some name as app is equal to Flask of dunder name, because with this only we start giving routing. But before that, I pass some entries into it, because when you go for a web page, you see in this particular web page of mobile phones, you can see here, you just navigate here. This is the stylings application retail, which is amazon.in, and request ID and this endpoint, because that's how you just connect to the particular endpoint and fetch the details. And again navigation start, where it should open and how does you could see, because when you inspect particular this element, because that's how you can inspect the web page, right? You could see when I just scroll this down. This is how generally people learn the front end, and how does they just, suppose if I click this, you see a dynamic tag over there, and we need not remember it, we just check with the classes. I'll just make sure I just drag this, and that's what we generally go for understanding in scraping part. We just make sure we do the same thing. That's what the requests are. So if the particular class is changed, I cannot use it. This is the source of it. That means this image I cannot change with my local system. You can copy the same code, but you cannot make sure you make changes, right? So this is the div tag, and you can just inspect it. That's what we just make sure we give here. Some simple list of items, where I just give this dummy entries comment, not here, but it is here, so that you can easily relate. So now I just create my task, that is, so that I create in the format of list. What does our JSONify function will do? It will convert that into a dictionary. You can just give any name, it's up to you. So I'm just creating a list of items, so where I'll create a dictionary in it. So I have dictionaries inside a list. So I just pass my first key, that is ID, and the value is 1. That means I'm trying to pass the details of the what I'm trying to do. Generally, I mean, my daily activities are in that way. So you can just give your own thing. Suppose if you want to see in a better way, just go line by line, that is, just press enter and try to pass here what you are trying to buy. Suppose if you are trying to give your activity like you are trying to go to a shopping, something like you are trying to buy groceries. So just give buy groceries. Make sure whenever you declare a dictionary, that is key and a value, just make sure when you're declaring a string, that should be in quotations. That is mandatory. So never ever forget that. and what is the description you are trying to throw for it, what are you trying to buy. So when you say groceries, you can just try to buy, you're giving milk, whatever, it's up to you. You can give number of IDs, cheese, and I just throw it as bread, anything. Then again finally fruits. So these are the groceries I want to buy, and I'm just giving only in the format of one string over there. And finally, whether the task is done or not, I just mention it as done, and just whether give it as a boolean, yes or no. Because it is not done, I close this dictionary, I just give comma at the end, and I just write one more dictionary where I just pass another ID. My ID is, be careful when you're writing ID, because ID is already a built-in function, it takes memory object, and again it cannot convert that to a string, because JSONify will convert our lists and dictionary to JSON format. So then make sure you give your IDs to, the other ID is, I just want to give, the title is learning Python. This is very just simple thing I'm trying to give, so that you can just feel it as attractive. So learning Python. And what is the description I can give? My description is, because generally for the first API method, I just wanted to obtain the information. So I'll just make this with the get method. So that is the reason I can give, this course is the best choice, because first thing, as I'm teaching it is, I just suggest you to go with this course, because you feel enjoy, because I just learn in the same way, I make it everything as practical. I hope you are following the same thing and enjoying it. If you are enjoying, you have a smile on your face now while watching this video, right? So now I just close this dictionary and I close this curly brace, square brace. That means when you print this task, what you're able to see, you could see a list, right? So when you save and when you execute this, oh, we have gave some mistake because we did not give comma over there. Sorry for that. Just avoid the syntax errors. When you execute this, you get the list of items, ID, title. That means when you ask tasks of 0, what do you get? You get first thing. And when you ask tasks of 0 of, when you fetch ID, what do you get? You get 1. You know already sub-indexing part. I just remove that thing because it's already known to you. What we are trying to do is, we are trying to provide the routing with get method. So I want to give a date app.route, where my routing is slash, because it is a decorator that is used to register a function. We just give slash, and what are the methods? I'll just throw the same method. I just throw the same method with get. So just make sure we give it as get method. That means we are trying to obtain the information about the resource. That is nothing but, when I just run this particular code, I just need to get the same task, converting this dictionary, dictionaries inside a list to JSON format. So I create a function. My function name is to get the task. That is when I just return it. So I just write a doc string here to get the information, of task. Let's try to fetch it. How do you fetch it? You return that thing with JSONify. So we just go for to get the information of task by converting it to JSON format. Return JSONify of, what is our key? Our key should be the task, TASKS, and what is our value? Whatever the list we gave in the above. That's it. Then run the application. You just make sure, if you give if underscore, that is dunder name is equal to, we just made dunder main, because we are running this particular program as a script, and run the application. App.run, just make sure host is non-port. We just made it as debugging. That is debug is equal to true, because we are just making sure that we generally pass this only into our production, right? We generally pass it in development, not for the production part, sorry, because runs the application on local development, not into production. So debug is equal to true. So this is mandatory. Save it. That means when I run this program, I should see this converted JSON format. Let's go for it. Let me just open my terminal. So I go to desktop. I'll run cmd here. What is my file name? Python understanding methods. Just go for it and copy the URL and paste it in the browser. That's it. When you copy and paste it in the browser, you should see the JSON content. There you go. You see, you got the task, and this is your curly brace opening, curly brace closing, task is your key, and you can see the dictionaries inside it. List of dictionaries, that is the JSON format, whatever the web format you see. And don't worry about this order, because JSON will return the different order. If it is list, it is ordered collection. You cannot expect the same order, right? Now what we'll do is, we try to fetch, if we try to provide anything other than this, suppose if you give slash Saket, if you try to give like this, resource not found, right? Did you mention slash Saket? That is in the previous program. That application has ended. Now if you change anything, if you give this particular port number, that is 127.0.0 is to 1 is to 5000, you could see this result. Now what we'll try to do is, we'll try to make it throw an error. Suppose if user write, if he want to fetch only first ID, he should see this task. If he want to fetch second ID, he should see this task. Let's try to make a simple change in the same program, where I'll provide one more routing. My routing would be @ just make sure we give app.route, because when we go for post method also, I'll be using the same thing. We just give the URL is /task. You can give anything, it's up to you. I just made it relevant, and we are passing the variable name, because we pass that thing to our function as a keyword argument. I just make it as integer, and I'll just give the ID of the task, whether it is first ID or second ID. Then I'll just close this. That means I'll try to give /task1. If I give 1, I should see first result. If I give 2, I should see second result. I'll just give methods is equal to, go for get method. Make sure you give all of them as caps. Then define another function, so that you could handle that error, right? So that is the reason. That means if you want to first see it, should get the task ID. Then we'll provide another routing, because the status codes are different, right? As I clearly mentioned you, the status codes will be related to 400 series, 300 series, all of them differently. When you just learn one by one, it will be easier for you. Just make it simple. When you see 404, that is nothing but you are seeing that particular resource is not found. That means client error response code indicates that server cannot find the requested resource. That is the reason when you open a web page, you could see that error. Now let's try to prompt that error here. So I'll just make sure we define get task, and our because our first function name is get task, and this function name is task ID. Sorry, get task, and the argument is task ID, so that I have passed that thing to my routing, and I go for comprehension, because I want to fetch the result, right? That means task for tasks, task for task in what is our function, what is our list, because this is list comprehension, right? X for X in what is your container task, if task of, if you are able to find ID, if ID is able to matching with the task ID. Just make sure that you write the variable names correctly. So task for task in tasks, if task of ID, if I am giving 1, I should get the first ID result. That's it. Then if it is length of task, we are just writing condition, if length of task equal to 0. What I am trying to tell, I am just trying to abort it by giving 404 error. And finally, it should return my JSONify content, that is JSONify of what is our variable name, that is key name task, and what it should fetch from it, because I don't know whether I may give second one or third one. If I give second one, I should see the second task. That is the reason I am taking task of 0, because that should fetch that as the first index. So this is the first routing which we give after the basic method. The last routing is, I want to handle that specific error. So I gave app.route of, we just pass that thing. Instead of routing, we just need to handle the error, right? So we just change it to error handler, where we handle that error with exception. The exception code is 404, right? Now we just define a function. What is our function? If it is not found, that means we are unable to say it. What is the method we what is the argument we have given over there? Error. And in return, what we are trying to give? We are trying to make sure we get a response. Return make response of JSONify. The same, if you are just following it, that is the same content which we are giving. There is no change in it. Just make sure if you are following. That means you are trying to prompt an error, because Google will give you a dinosaur game and so many things. Like if you see Amazon, I'll just show you a simple example. If I just change anything like this, I remove all this URL. If I give this, Amazon is giving this text suggesting us, looking for something, we are sorry. That means they are giving some image. If you click this, you will go to home page. Now what we'll try to do is, we'll try to prompt some text. If you are good at writing tags and HTML scripts, it's up to you. Where I am trying to give, there is an error. This is my thing. This is my key, and I am trying to throw the value as rewrite again or recheck again. Recheck again, and the status code is 400. That's it. So this is how we just prompt it. Just close the response, and what is the status code? That is 404. There you go. That's it. We have just defined two more functions, which is get task to give the task. That is, if I give slash task 1, I should see first task. If I give 2, I should see second task. Other than that, I should be able to handle the error by giving the routing as error handler. So save it, and I'll go to my command prompt. I'll just come back again. You can run it directly over there, but I refresh and I run it again. There you go. You get the routing, you get the URL. Just copy the URL and go to browser, and even you can refresh this. You see the same thing. And if you give slash task slash 1, you should see first task. That is description like buying, title buying groceries. If you give 2, you should see only second one. And if you remove this everything, you should see the entire JSON content, right? What happens if you give anything other than that? If I give 0, see, its name error make response is not defined. That means we did not define a library. That is, we did not fetch anything like make response and abort. How does that will happen? Yes, so just add those two things in the importing functions. That's what I wanted to just make you learn from errors. That is the reason I did not mention in the beginning, because you should learn from the errors. And now when you refresh this, there you go, you got this. That is the reason we just gave it over there, make response. It should, whenever we are returning it, it should throw an error, right? But automatically, if without defining it, it has thrown the error. That's what I wanted to show you by debugging. That is the main intention. And if you run this, you could see it is a name error. You are giving so much of heavy length of code. Don't worry about it, because it is searching with the workzug routing.py. It did not fetch anywhere make response. It is throwing you name error. That means you did not define that function from Flask. That's it. So just make sure you always debug it, and just make sure you run from that. And with any routing you give, it will automatically throw you whatever you gave in error handler. If there is an error, recheck again. Whatever number you gave other than 1 and 2, you get the same result, and you can track the traffic in your command prompt. So this is how you just understand about get, that is obtaining information and trying to make sure you read an error. Now what we'll do is, we'll try to make sure we'll understand how do we just try to give post. What do you mean by post? We are trying to submit the data, or we are just trying to create a new resource, right? So that is the reason which I just told you in put. But that is nothing but creating a new resource. Post is always creating a new resource. Put is updating. So let's go for that. We'll just make a simple changes in this code only. So as we have understood about get methods, now we'll go for post, as post is all about creating a new resource. So what I'll do is, let's just copy the same thing, because we'll just provide some routing, and we cannot update it directly, right? I mean, we cannot create a new resource directly, where we need to have an additional command line tool. So I'll just save this. So I'll just create a new file and I'll save it, and I just save the name as understanding post. Just follow it, very simple. Even though it will become a lengthy video, just make it very simple, because I cannot easily split it. I want to just show you the difference between get and post. So here we'll add one more method name, which is request, because we just try to give a request where we are trying to add a new resource. So for that reason, I cannot do it from my command prompt, right? Because even if I run the same shell, suppose if I just give tasks of 2, I get only 2. And if I give 1, I get only 1. And if I mention any other thing like this, it will throw me an error. But where do I create a new resource? So for that reason, I need to have a command line tool. So for that, we just need to go to browser and download curl, because curl is a well-known command line tool for transferring data using various networks. It is not only used by communication people, it is used by communication people and any people. See, doc type for transferring, server end and communication, where we just need to transfer the data over URL, right? It is used in cars, television sets, routers, 10 billion installations, you could see, because in the car also we need to have the radio FM. How do you see it, right? So that's where it is open source and it is being by thousands of contributors. Just download, click on curl. We just need to go with the version we are using. Just scroll down. As we are using Windows, we'll just come down. It depends on your version, whether you are using Mac or anything. Just click on the separate version. I'll just click on this. Then I'll get a .exe file with the zip format. So click on curl for 64-bit. Let it get downloaded. In the meanwhile, we'll just make changes in our code, right? Where we just add another routing in this, because I just named it as understanding post. Because in post method, what I'll try to do is, I'll try to create a new resource by giving routing @app.route, because we just need to follow some simple command line tool, curl, where we have some resources for including it, for creating a new resource. We have some syntax. I'll just share the file also, but make sure don't get confused with that. So what is the routing? When I give /tasks, right? And what is the method? The method is, we just need to go for the method is post. So just make sure don't make any syntax mistakes over there, /task. And what we are trying to mention, the create method name could be, it is create. So we are trying to create a new task. That is, we are creating a task where I just need to mention if not the request, if not request. For this reason, I have just imported request from the Flask. That's the main reason. If not request.json or not title, because title is, we are creating a new title, because we are not updating the existing resource. For updating, we need to go for put method. We are just obtaining information by giving get, we are reading it. Now we are trying to create a new resource, that is create. See, we have done our operation. Update and delete, will be doing it later. So here, title in, if not request.json or not title. If anything is not present, what we just need to do, where I just need to go for another status code where I need to abort. Where if I go for 400 status code, that is 400 status code is basically a bad request. That means where if a user is trying to hit the server, this specific bad request status code indicates that the server cannot or will not process the request. So for this reason, I am just giving the status code as abort 400. This is very, very important. Just have a glance on the browser about status codes. It will be very much easier. Now, I'll create a new dictionary with the name task. Task is equal to, you can give any name. And the first thing is ID, because I want to update it, right? I don't know how many IDs I'm having. Generally, in real cases, let's make it. In real case, you don't know how many IDs you'll be having. Suppose a person creating new account in Swiggy or Zomato or new installation of Paytm. It happens, right? The same thing. Where it should go to tasks of ID. Tasks of ID. Where, how do you take it? But you don't know the number, right? How can you give direct ID? Just come from back, negative indexing. Tasks of -1 of ID plus 1, that is ID. That ID is being updating. And how do you go for title? Just make sure title, you just request it, request.json of title. Once we write the code, we'll just make changes to our command line tool by installing curl. It is just downloaded. And my description, just make sure how did you give description. I gave description D capital. That is the reason I'm following the same thing. And colon and request.json, request.json.get. We are trying to get the description. This description is I'm giving common. How many number of resources you create? The same description you have. Description is I am doing good. This is my description. That's it. And finally, I give my done. The task is done. So I'll define it as true. True should be Boolean, not quotations, right? That's it. You have just created a new dictionary, that is task, and you should update this thing to your list, right? What is your list? Your list is task dot append of what is your list object? I mean dictionary object, that is task. That's it. That means you need to return this specific object, that is return JSONify. And what is your key? The key is task. And what is your value? Task. Because there is a difference in writing. This is your dictionary, that is you're giving task. And what is the name you want to have for it? Task. How do you understand this is created? The status code is 201. 200 is basically making sure that the response we are fetching from the particular website. But when you go for 201, it clearly tells you that this specific status code indicates that request has succeeded and has led to the creation. That's it. ID task for -1. Let's just cross check it we can write correctly. App.route of /task methods is post. A function name is creating task. If not request.json or not title in request.json, we are just making it abort. It is not defined. That is resource not found is 404. Bad request is resource 400. This is basically, I'll write the syntax. This is bad request and this is for status created a resource. That's what created resource. In that way you could just remember. And finally description, request.json.get description and your what is your sentence over there. Finally, good. Now I hope our curl is installed. We'll just go to the location and right. So let me just extract it and we'll take the specific folder. Open the folder. Just make sure you copy the .exe file from bin. That's it. Make it very simple. Copy the .exe file. Just extract the folder. Double click it. You'll be extracting. Just copy the .exe file and go to your C drive. Just open your C drive and create a new folder here, because we just need to make sure we run curl from our C drive so that our Windows will be understanding what do you mean by curl. Just click on run, then automatically your Windows should be able to recognize curl. See, it should tell you this. If it is telling this, it is correct. It's done. That means if you ask curl --help, it will give you all status codes. Now we'll use this response codes over there and try to create a new resource. It's simple. This is very important for transferring data over the files. That is how it is being created. -I for including, -D is the data, -X. These are all curl options, right? That means I need to run a specific file and I'll see the result in the command prompt only. For that reason, we are installing curl. That means if I run this particular file, the first file which is understanding API methods, I'll open one more command prompt because I should see the result, right? I'll type cmd here and I'll give a simple curl -I. And what is the URL where the Flask app is running? It is http://127.0.0.1:5000/. There you go. You see everything. The status is okay. Content type. We'll write the same thing now. The length of characters, server is workzug, the version of Python, date, at which particular time. The task, description, ID1 is buying groceries, ID2 is learning Python. That means if we close this application, you see the status is running. If we interrupt this app and if you try to see the curl result again, it will throw you the connection is failed because it is unable to connect to the port, right? So first we'll run the file. What is our file name? Our file name is understanding post. We just give Python understanding post. There you go. Good. Debugging mode is on. Server name, it's fine. So let's try to give the curl command. The curl command is curl -I-h. What is the header? Capital H. It is content type application JSON. Whatever we have seen here, we need to give the same thing. So I'll just copy this. Just make sure you are doing it correctly. Don't make any mistakes over there, because if you make any mistake, you will be thrown outside. I mean, you don't get the result over there in that way. So hyphen x, what is the resource? Our resource is post. And what is our data? Our data is quotations open, curly brace open, because this is specifically in Windows. If it is in Mac, you need not follow this curly braces format. That will be different. Slash title, because I'm just trying to give slash quotation title, again slash quotation. This is very, very important. I am trying to give my title as slash quotation. I'll give my name is Saket, because if you miss anything, automatically it will throw you an error. So curl hyphen I including hyphen h is header, content type application JSON, and the resource is post. The data we are entering is quotations slash quotation, quotation start slash quotation title slash quotation end, and slash our title is my name is Saket. Then close this and close the quotation. Where you want to create http colon 127.0.0.1 is to 5000 slash task, because already the id will be 3, because we have only 2 ids. For third id, this is the title, and we already gave description in this. What is the description? I am doing good, because we are creating a new resource. Because when you try to update this, you need to go for put method. That we'll be understanding in the next video. First, let's see. Let us execute this. Let us hit enter. There you go. Task 3. What is your title? My name is Saket. Description is I am doing good. Let's see the status here. You got 201 created. Very good. Now let's see curl hyphen I. Let's see curl hyphen I. There you go. You see third ID is also created. You can see the same thing in browser also. That means if I reload this, you see first ID, second ID, third ID. Dynamically everything is created. And if you ask slash 1, you get error, because we are not running this thing, right? We should execute with slash task slash 1, you get first ID, slash 2, you get second ID, slash 3, you get third ID what you have created. In the same way, you can dynamically create any number of IDs by just making sure that just follow it here. Just now I'll try to give, instead of my name is Saket, I'll try to change this slash task. Just close this, just come to here and you give today is good day. This is my new title, and I'll just come up here and I just execute this. There you go. ID is 4. That means when you run this curl, just click up arrow, curl hyphen I. You can see this. You got 4th ID also, and go to the web page and run it here. There you go. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. Dynamically being updating, and you can see the status codes here. That is how we have clearly understood. When you have gone for post, you are creating a new resource. It is very, very simple. Download curl tool and you can just give this simple command, that is curl hyphen I. Just first fetch the resources. You see 1 and 2 IDs. If you want to update it, you use the command line syntaxes like including header, the application JSON. I did not write it. I just copied from the above thing, because that is a content type, and the resource we are giving is post. The data is, just follow this syntax. It is very much easier. This is how we have understood how we can create a new resource. In the next video, we will understand how do we try to update the existing resource. So we have understood the difference between get and post methods, because by using get method we try to access the information about the given content on the web, that is by routing the Flask application with the help of the given URL, and we have also created some new resources with the help of command line tool, which is curl. Without giving curl we cannot update it. This is the exact way you should see. And now we'll try to go for updating the existing resource which is already present in our code, and we can also delete it. That's where the remaining 2 methods are put and delete. We have seen about C, that is CRUD. In CRUD, this is C, that is post method. We have seen R, that is read method, which is get. And now we are seeing about update and delete. Because update nothing but we are just trying to update the existing resource. That is where put and post are almost having some similarities, but generally put is updating, post is creating. So what we'll do, we'll just go with the same program. I'm just trying to modify in the same program itself. So we'll open the IDLE. So I'll just open IDLE and I'll just try to execute from where we have left. So I'll just open the recent file. I'll just open the recent files. Our recent file is understanding post method, right? So what I'll do is I'll just make changes within this and I'll just give another routing over there. So first I'll copy this entire code. So instead of writing again, we'll just make some new changes. So I'll paste it here. So I'll just change the name into understanding put method. So I'll just save it here. So I'll just name it as UNDPUT, that is understanding put method. So now same from Flask, import Flask, we are using JSONify, make response, abort and request. These are all simple, and again we just keep the routing as it is because it is necessary whenever we want to update it. I mean create a resource existing and update it. I just don't touch everything. I just make sure we write another routing here, because that routing where it will include, we'll just give the routing for updating the existing resource. So where we start with @app.route, just go for it. What you are trying to update, because if we are trying to update the existing resource, so I'll just give slash, the same thing we have done for the getError method, where if we ask to see task of 1, we could see the result. That means first let me just keep this comment and run this particular code. So I'll go to my command prompt, where just I'll open my command prompt from here and I'll run it from curl tool. So I just give Python, our file name is understanding put. There you go, you could see this. So suppose if I copy this and open my browser, and I'll just open my browser and I'll just try to show you how does this is being run. So I'll just execute it here. We have only 1 and 2 tasks. That doesn't mean that whatever we have updated are not created in this. We need to do it manually when we just write it, and we have some other ways how do you just execute it. So because we'll try to update these resources existing, and you can do the same way, where you can open your command prompt again here and type curl -i, where we just try to execute. We are including this URL http://127.0.0.1:5000/. There you go, you see all of this. Now we'll just try to make changes here, where we'll run the put method by making modifications in this. So we'll just pass the routing. Just make sure you have the differences between, understand the differences between get, post and put method. So I'll give, so I'm passing my variable name here. That means if I want to update the first resource, I want to update the first resource description, you pass it over there, but you'll do with curl tool. It's not, you can do it manually over there. So int of task underscore ID. So we just make sure we are passing this variable name. So we just give the same thing in our function. We'll just pass that as a keyword argument. Int of task ID, task underscore ID. You can give any name over there, like task ID as combined. To make it more simple, I just give methods is equal to, what is the method name? We need to pass the method name as put. Just make sure you need to pass it in curly, square braces only. That is mandatory. That is our routing. Now let's define a function. Our function name is update task, right? Our function is update task, and we need to pass an argument over there. What is the argument? That argument should be task ID, because we just pass the same thing as variable name. Just pass the same thing over here. Now our function is update task, and just go for same comprehension. What you are trying to fetch? Task for task, same what we have done for the getError. Task for task, in tasks, if task of ID, what is task of ID is matching with, that is equal to task underscore ID. The same thing we have done. Now let's try to verify each and everything. So task for task, in task, if task of, because task is our list of values which is having these particular 2 IDs. Now we will try to match each and everything, starting with ID, then we'll go for title and everything, because basically if I give 1, I want to update title or description, anything I can choose. So first, if the length of task is equal to 0, what we should pass the request? our request should be abort, because abort of 404. What do you mean by 404? You already know that 404 is basically for not found resource. That's where if you see a web page that is without an internet connection, that is making sure that that error response code indicates that server cannot find. That means if you open a web page with any other resource, something like, let me just go to amazon.in, Amazon. See, I'm giving just wrong name. You just see over there, Amazon, automatically redirecting it. What I'll do is, I'll just open a tab here and I'll just remove all this extension and I'll give search bar. See, 404, document not found. That's what they navigate, and we'll pass the same thing to our code. So we are just making sure we abort with 404 error. That is, we are passing the request code so that when we update it, when we are having no listen, no IDs in it, so it will abort. Then another condition, if not request.json, same thing. If not request.json, we just need to abort again, abort of same 400. It's not 404 now. By 400, because if it is not of the JSON content, what do you mean by 400 error? 400 error will specifically tell that the server cannot or will not process the request. 404 is not found because it is an empty list over there, whereas 400, it will not process that request due to the some error. That is something like syntactical error or any kind of framing over there. That is the reason we have passed it. Then we'll just go for if title. If the title in request.json, if the title in request.json, and what is the title of the type of title? It is string, right? And type of request.json of title is not equal to string, because if the user is not giving string, then it should be an error, because we just gave title as string. If you can just look into it, we gave it as string and description is also string. The done is false. You can give any number of items over there, it's up to you. So if title in request.json and type of request.json of title is not equal to string, same, we are just making it abort of 400, because that is nothing but 404 is resource not found and 400 is basically it's a bad request. There's a pretty much difference between not found and bad request. The same thing for the next things. What are the remaining things? The next thing is, if we are done with the title, the next thing is description, DESCRF. Just make sure you pass in the same way. Title C is small letter, yes. So if description in again request.json and type of, just make sure we pass the same thing, type of request.json of description. Just make sure pass it in the same way. Description is also not equal to string. Description is not equal to str, or is not anything, you can pass, it's up to you. Is not str. That means again we are just telling it to abort of 400. That is, it is a bad request. Then do the same thing for done. If done in, we are giving all the conditions over there so that you can update anything. If request.json and type of request.json of the key is done, and this is not boolean. If it is not bool, see, we are just using our identity operators and identity is and is not. If it is not matching with the memory position, memory location, and again go for abort of 400. So we have mentioned all of the conditions. We have just given title, we have just given description. If length of task equal to 0, abort. If not request.json, abort 400. That's a bad request. Title in request.json and type of request.json of title is not string. Description in request.json and type of request.json of description is not string. Then we are making sure that if the user enters, that is whatever he may enter irrespective of the indexes, I am just making task of 0 of title. If we are updating what we just need to do, we need to convert that thing into JSON format and get the request JSON of title, and we are making it to task of 0 of title. We are just making sure that we just read the content out of it. That is for title. And the same thing you go for task of 0 of, the next thing is description. When you go for description, you just go for the same way. This title task of 0 of description is equal to request dot JSON dot get of same. Just go for the description part. That means you can update anything, it's up to user interest, and it is final description and task of 0 of description. Whatever you can throw, the same thing whatever you have defined in the list of tasks. And finally, the next thing is for task of 0 of done. That is boolean, right? That is equal to request dot JSON dot get of, the next thing is done, and task of 0 of done. We are just making the same thing. Finally, if everything is done, we need to return the JSONify content. So JSONify of, make it sure you give curly brace and pass it task, and what are the values? Task. We are updating each and everything. That's how you update the key with the value, right? That's what we are giving. Make sure you give task of 0 because that's what we are framing here, and close the brace. It's clear. Finally, if name is main, we are just running app.run debug is equal to true. That's it. If everything is clear, we'll just go ahead for running, where we'll utilize our curl tool. So we'll just save it and we'll go to command prompt, which is already open. Our file name is Python. We just go for put method. There you go. It's clearly running. Nice. We'll just write our curl syntax, where we'll just give same whatever we have done for post method, curl -i, we are including it, and -h. What is the content type which we already have here? That is JSON. Just copy this because it's up to you. I'm not directly copying it. We already know it, right? So we'll just paste it here, and just -x is the request. What is the request? With our request is put method and input is data. What do you want to update? I want to update the first title. I want to update the first title. Start with quotation, curly brace, and give slash quotation. This is mandatory. I want to update title slash quotation. What is the value you want to throw? I want to throw my name itself slash Saket. So for the first title, I want to throw my name slash quotation, curly brace close, quotations close. What is the URL? The Flask URL, http://127.0.0.1 is to 5000, and make sure mention it for which task you want to change. I want to change it to first task. There you go. Hit enter. Very good. You can see title has been changed, and let's verify it in our curl tool, that is curl -i. There you go. Title has been updated in real time, and you can refresh the URL which we have given. You can see title has been changed, and if you fetch slash task /1, you could see first one, and you can see the title has been changed to Saket /2. And even if you want to update description, just go for it. You can see the status request here 200, 200, 200. Everything is clear. And if you want to update description, just throw the same thing. Make sure we just replace, in place of title, just go for description. Just make sure you give description as capital, because D I gave in the same way. Description is, you can write your details over here, my name and details. In that way we are just passing. That's it. So just go to the end and execute it again. That means we are updating our description over there. Let us check. If it's clear, it would be fine. So description, my name and details. Let's cross check here. There's no error. It should take a result. Let's see whether, let's wait for it. curl -i -h content type application JSON, data, description, my name and details. Let's wait for it. There is no issues because we are updating the description over there. If we have any error, we could see it over here. Otherwise, let's interrupt it, or let's just try to say it. You got it. It may take some time. You got the result over there. That means you could run the curl tool over there again and the description has been updated. There you go. It takes some time. No need to worry about that. You could see the updation being done. In that way, you can update your title and description. That is dynamic. It is automatically being updating, so that when you create a resource, you can also delete it, right? The same way you are updating it now. That's the simple thing. If you are capable of understanding the curl tool, we just need to give curl -i is including -h is the header file. The header file is a JSON content, and what is our request? Put method and the data. Just follow the syntax of starting with quotations, curly brace, open, slash, quotation. That quotation in the sense double quotes, description, title, whatever you want to update. So this is what we are just doing for put method. So if I just wanted to come out, I just throw Control C, and when I execute it again, you can see it here. The resource will not found because I have just stopped the execution over there. The site can't be reached. That's what we have done. Now we'll just try to understand the final method, which is delete. Delete is nothing but we are just trying to make sure delete an existing resource. The same thing, what we'll do is we'll just copy the entire code and we'll create a new shell, new file, where I just wanted to make the same changes. Understanding delete method, I'll save it as UNDDEL. It could be easier. So UNDDEL. There you go. We just make one simple change so that depending on the existing resource, we'll try to delete it. What we'll try to give? We just route one more method where we just give which resource you want to delete. That's what you just try to give it, right? Same, once you are comfortable understanding the CRUD operations, it's very much flexible. You write your own JSONify content and you just make it done. /task and write the variable name int of task underscore id. That's simple. Just close it. If you are not passing the variable name, that means you should not give that as keyword argument for the function. Just remember that. And what is the method? The methods is equal to, the method name is delete. So DELET. Just go for it. Close the parenthesis and define the method. Our method name is delete. Delete underscore task of, what is the argument? Our argument is task underscore id. There you go. That's it. Just write the comprehension. So task is equal to task for task. If you want to delete a resource, you just mention the id, right? That's it. You need not go for description, title. You just mention the id. Task for task in task if task of id. If task of id is equal to task underscore id, because this is a very efficient way. Always follow the comprehension technique, which we have discussed in starting videos only. Then same again, if length of task equal to 0, the resource is obviously about it's not found, that is 404. That is the status code which you are mentioning. And finally, we are permanently removing it. It's a list, right? How do you remove an element permanently from a list? There you go. You have the methods as remove, pop, clear. Task is a list. So just go for task.remove of, what is the ID you gave? Task of 0. That's it. Then always return the JSONify function with the result. If it is particularly removed, we should see this result. That the result should be, you can prompt any key and value. I am trying to prompt congrats, successfully removed. I am just prompting this message. That means something like when you deactivate your account, you get the notifications, right? That's the same thing users will be prompting. Developers will be prompting. That's it. So delete task ID, delete task ID, task equal to task for task in task if task of ID equal to task ID. If length of task equal to 0, about task.remove of task of 0. Return JSONify, result is, you should see this content. That means we have given the same thing for get error. We are given the error handler 404. We should see this when we don't give the proper condition, proper ID over there, we got that. In the same way, if I remove first thing, I should get this result. Okay, let's go for that. I'll just run the same thing. My file name is Python programming. File name is UNDDEL. There you go. Successfully running. What is your curl command again? We just give a simple command, that is curl -i. What is our request? Curl -i, and we just pass the request is, the method we are passing is delete. Curl -i -x, because these are the curl commands which you should do, which you should remember. -i, -h, -x is the request which we are passing. Delete, and what is the URL? http://127.0.0.1:5000. I want to delete second task. I'll just pass /task/2. If it is successfully removed, I should see the result. There you go, result. Congrats, successfully removed. That means when I pass curl -i http://127.0.0.1:5000, I should see only one task. That's it, because we have removed the second task. Just refresh the web page, you see only one task. When you pass /1, you should see only one. See, because it is /task/1. If you pass 2 again, it is permanently removed over there. See, there is an error, recheck again. That's how we have just deleted the resource. We have only first ID, and you can see description, title, because when you just see it, milk, cheese, because we are updating it over there, and we are again running the specific code. If you want to update, you can just update it. So when you are deleting it, we have deleted the second code, and when you see the curl again, there you go. You are successfully deleting the existing ID. So that is how we have understood these 4 methods. Starting with get, we are obtaining information. When we have gone for post, we are creating a new resource. When we have gone for put, we are just routing the same methods, and we are mentioning the task and task ID. What we want to update, if it is title or description or done, whatever. If you want to give another list, pass the same number of dictionaries. That will be list of dictionaries or dictionaries of lists, anything. You return that as a JSONify content. Just follow the same syntax, and just need to understand what are these curl tools. Curl, if you just give curl -help, it will throw you all these status codes, because we just use -i, -H is request, which specific, it is put or post or get or delete. Just we will use that, and finally when we have gone for delete method, we have successfully deleted the resource. Just remember, these play a very vital role when you are working on building any web application. Always remember these 4 methods: create, read, update, delete. That is get, post, put and delete. They play a very vital role in building an application. So we have understood different API methods as we have worked on get, put, post, delete, because they are very important when we are building a web application. We have also seen how to build a simple Flask application. The good thing is we have also hosted it on Ngrok. That's how we differentiated it. And make sure you follow some strict guidelines when you are using Ngrok. Make sure you use only Wi-Fi, not through LAN connection, because Ngrok doesn't allow your port to get connected. Right? Now let's work on our hands-on project, which as previously we have worked on building a virtual assistant. Now we'll see how to build our own simple registration form by using some simple front end, where we'll be using some HTML libraries, where we'll generally go for using Bootstrap over there. No worries, I'll just make it very simple to make it understand. So but before that, let's write our backend code, which is in Python. So for that, I'll go to my environment where I have created projects. Let's go to the previous environment. I have created on my desktop, and my folder name is projects, right? So here we have 2 folders, which are, so let me just make it view, right? We have Saket is my virtual environment, and this is our project, the first project, which is virtual assistant. Now we'll create one more folder, so that I clearly mention we'll have multiple project folders within the same main directory, so that your environment will have all the supporting project libraries so that we don't have any discrepancies and dependencies don't happen. So first let's open our terminal from here. Make sure you just go to the folder and type cmd over there. Now you know how to create a simple folder, right? You generally go by right click and you follow the method. What I'll do is I'll just give mkdir and our project is building API. So I just give building API. There you go. If you have gone to next line, that means that folder is successfully created and you can see it's an empty folder, right? So you can also access it by giving tab, right? Now we have successfully got this new folder, and first we'll create a Python file in that, then we'll go for the remaining things. So first I'll go to that file. That file name is cd. So I'll just go for building. I just give building API. Now in this particular folder, I would like to create a Python file. Whether I use it as a module or a package, that is different. So if you want to create a simple programming file, you can just use a shortcut as notepad. And what is our file name? It's up to you. You can give registration form. So this is our file name. I'm just making it in this way, and give the extension. If you're working on C, Java or any kind of programming language, you can use this shortcut to create that particular programming file, right? So registration form.py, but you should have that supporting software to be existed in your environment. Now there you go. It will ask us whether if you want to create a new file. Yes, obviously. There you go. Automatically you have a Python file created. You can see it here. It's an empty file, right? You can clearly observe how does that is created. Now what we'll do is we need to go into the environment. If you remember, how did we do that? Yes, first I'll come out of this and I'll dig into my environment, which is Saket. But how did you do this? You should go for giving cd, not giving tab directly. If you go to that environment, then automatically you, with this virtual environment, you can access each and everything. So first we'll activate this environment. We'll give / then scripts, and I'll tell this environment to be activated. There you go. Then you can come out of this. You can access any of the folder. It's up to you. Now within our project folder, we'll start working on it. So first we'll make sure our environment is activated, because when you just give pip freeze or pip list, you already worked on couple of libraries, right? It will throw you whatever the list of libraries or packages we have in the particular environment. It is giving you the list. See, we have worked on Beautiful Soup, Play Sound, PyAudio and speech recognition, right? No worries about the pip upgradation. It is fine. You can just follow the simple syntax here to upgrade it. It's fine. Now we'll dig into our environment and we'll start working on our file, because we need not need anything like installation, but we only need mainly Flask and Ngrok. First we'll install that, then while execution part we can directly go for it, because in this particular video my aim is to make you understand how do we create a simple registration class. Because in your registration form, what do you have generally? You have sign up and login, right? Obviously, even when you go to Amazon, suppose if you go to amazon.in, if you don't have any account, if you just see it here, new customer, he'll tell it to start here. Create an Amazon account, he'll give multiple fields. He'll ask your number, mobile number, email ID, everything he'll ask, right? In the same way, let's give a simple thing like sign up and login. So in the sign up, I'll add some fields. You try to add your own fields. And the best thing is, we'll be using a well-known method, because Python is an object-oriented programming language. It provides with multiple and abundant built-in methods, right? So first let's go to our project folder, which is building API. Just make it simple. First and best thing is you need to activate your virtual environment. So in the virtual environment, you can have any number of project folders. This is your root directory, because that's how when you see any application online, whether it is a web development application or anything, whether you see a website working, it has some particular folders for the database files and for static HTML files and for the static CSS or JS files and the templates which has HTML files, everything it has. The same way, now I'm into this environment, I'll start working on my Python file. So it's better to go to our IDLE and open the file, right? Because if I open here, I can do it. What is my file name? Registration form.py. See, it is exactly, it doesn't open over here because we have just made it to be created. We are in the environment, it is just executing. If I run python registration form.py, there is nothing to be printed, right? So what we'll do is, we'll open that thing with IDLE. I'll just right click on this and you can have this option. Don't double click it. Don't double click. Please don't do that. Most of the people will do that because this is not your system MS Office file, because you can double click a PPT or a doc or text file to open. Never ever double click Python file or Java, any program files. Just right click on that and choose for the edit with or open with options. I'll click edit with IDLE. There you go. I am into this particular location. I can start writing my code over here. So my comment is building a simple registration form. I try to build a simple registration form where I'll use the better thing, which is working on hash method, because when you go for hash method, I'll just open Python shell here. When you go for hash, because you see the color is being changed, that is a built-in function. You can see over there. And when you go for asking help of hash, always try to use documentation. Always go for asking help method, because it returns the hash value for the given object. Two objects that compare equal must also have the same hash value, but the reverse is not necessarily true. What do you mean by hash here? Because Python is one of the most popular high-level languages, right? Because it takes the procedure, it takes the procedure properties from C and object properties from C++, and it can be cross-platform, and we mainly using for the making sure crossbreed platforms. Basically, if you have any application in PHP or Java, we can migrate it to Python. We can use the same functionalities, right? So in the same way, Python comes up with abundant built-in libraries that has hundreds of modules and functions, which we have already worked on built-in functions, and we have also discussed on many built-in modules. It's all about how do you go for it. The next important thing is, when you go for hash method, it is basically used to return the hash value of an object. Something like, if you write hash of any number, suppose if you give hash of 26, because everything is an object, for integer you cannot see the differentiation over there, but generally when we go for this immutable objects, or when you go for any string, suppose if I give any string like this, I'll pass my name hash of Saket, you could see some huge number over there. That means it is basically storing in another format. To make it very simple, hash method returns the hash value, because hash values are basically numbers only. They are used to compare dictionary keys using a dictionary lookup quickly, because ID is different. When I ask ID of Saket, ID is different because it is the memory location. It returns the identity of that particular object. So this is your ID and this is your hash value. Even when I execute the hash value again, you see, there is no change in the hash value because that is used for the lookup. Why are we discussing about this? If you have any doubt in that, basically, when you create a registration form, you shouldn't see the password, right? Yes, because that's how even when you go for creating password, actually they'll have the details of your password, but they are basically in encrypted format, right? So he'll ask you to at least 6 characters. That means he'll ask you to find up with some special characters or anything. Even Facebook or Amazon, Swiggy, you basically go with Gmail sign in. But what we'll do is, we'll try to make sure our password is in hash format, so that you cannot see the exact number. Whether you give it alphanumeric or number, in the same way, we'll just try to make it into the hash format. Whether when you go for hash of anything, suppose like if I go for an immutable object, like I'll give a tuple over there, tuple of hash of 26. If I throw in this way, see, basically hash methods mainly works for immutable objects, whether it is a string or tuple. In that way, we'll just use it. Now we'll follow the same format, where we'll create a simple class and make our password to be hash format, where we'll create a class. First, we'll create a dictionary, so that we'll save our methods. What are the methods? Sign up method, login method. In sign up, I'll be mainly concentrating on username and password. You can give email, whatever you want, it's up to you. So first, let's create a simple class. I'll create a simple dictionary to store user details. That means username and password. So I'll give my dictionary name as users. So users is equal to empty dictionary, because when I give type of users, automatically that is an empty dictionary. Until and unless we pass the values one by one, that is set, because this is not set. If I ask print of type of users, you could see the same difference. When you just execute this print of type of users, you could see that as a dictionary automatically, right? Now we'll just create a simple class to create our registration form. So first I'll go for class. My class name is register, class of register, no object over there. My doc string is building a basic registration form, building a basic registration. You can tell form or whatever it is, it's up to you. Now we'll just go for initializing the methods. You remember, right, when we discussed about classes, what is the first method to initialize the variables? Yes, it's obviously constructor. So define dunder init, and what is the first argument which stores the memory of every method, every object over there, which is self. That is mandatory. And you write variable other object is app, where we'll just refer with this self dot app is equal to app. That's how we are declaring it. That's fine. That's the first method, which is a constructor. Then we'll go for creating our methods, which are, first one is sign up method. So in sign up method, what do we throw? We just throw the first as a reference, anything that is self. Then we ask username, and then we ask password, because this is very, very important when you are declaring it. In the same way, we'll build any registration form. That's the main thing when you go for building a web application. You should understand, whether you go for Django or any other web framework, it's simple. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to make sure my password should return the hash value. So for that, I'll give p is equal to hash of, what is a variable? It should be given by user. Whatever user enters, that should be converted to hash format. It is a dictionary, right? How do you update the values into a dictionary? You just go for, what is the method? Users dot, it's a dictionary, right? You go for update method, the same methods which are present. And what is the key? The key is username. And what is the value? The value is p, right? So we are updating this thing to our dictionary. Always remember, don't forget these fundamentals. If you don't know how to update a value into a dictionary, it's gone, right? So users dot update of, because why did I take update? You can directly pass a key and value, users of username equal to p. You can do in that way, but you don't know how many number of people will sign up, right? That's the reason you are creating a dictionary, unique key, and duplicate values you can have, but you cannot have duplicate keys, right? That is the reason they will not throw a same username. That is the same thing. That's what you see in general websites. The other method is login. So define login of self, comma, again for the login also you are just giving username, comma, password. There you go. And again, once it is logged in, say make sure you give p is equal to hash of password, the same way which we have given, because now if you are trying to log in, what you should do? If users of, how do you access the key and the value? How do you access the value? You throw the key. What is the key? Username. If users of username is matching with the password, then what it should return? It should return true. It is correct. It should return it is correct. Otherwise, if you are giving wrong password, what it should tell you? It should return false. I'll just execute it, then you'll understand. This is a very simple class where we are creating it. Now if you save it and if you execute this, you already know when you ask directory of register, it's a class, right? You are creating, that is in, you can initialize that thing to an object. When you go for directory of register, what are the methods? Login, sign up. That's a simple, right? So now what we'll do is, we'll go for assigning an object. You just make sure you assign an object for it. You go for creating u1 is equal to, that's a first user, u1 is equal to register of, because it is expecting app, right? It's a basic registration form, because we gave self, comma, app, that should be passed, because you can pass anything over here. I'll give that as object 1. That's the first object. Then you pass here. First you need to go with what are the methods available within it? Sign up and login. Without sign up you cannot log in, right? So I'll just pass sign up of. I just give my username and password. My username is Saket Reddy. I just give username and I'll keep my password so that it should be encrypted. Make sure you keep that is whether it is consisting of alphanumeric or anything. So to sign up, basically give your username and password. That is mandatory. Then you can cross check with the users and you can just cross check with the login so that it should return true. Because here we just gave the same thing. P is equal to hash of password. If users of username is matching, it should return true. There you go. Now what I'll do is I'll execute this. Nothing will be printed because we did not give anything over there. But cross check users. There you go. This is your username. What happened to our password? It is returning the hash value because we gave P is equal to hash of password. Then let's try to log in. Let's try to log in here. That is users dot. We can give login. Sorry, users is dictionary, right? U1. U1 is our object. U1 dot login of what is the username we gave? We gave use because I know my password, right? If I give my password correctly, then it will open. Otherwise, it will throw me an error, which is false. If it is giving true, that means our username and password are correct because you know it. But what I'll do is, I'll throw one another thing. There you go. It is returning false because you gave the password as wrong. That is the reason I gave here return true. Else return false so that we can verify it. Suppose if you try to give here return success and if you want to throw here this is wrong password, save and execute again. There you go. Go for users. First give users. You got, see, password again, hash value returning a different thing. And first try to log in. U1 dot. Make sure if you give U1 dot app. See what is the object? obj1 and U1 dot login. So try to just log in with your credentials. My credentials are this. You can give your own credentials and check with it. Then what happened? It is returning you success. You can write any string over there. It's not anything. You should follow the my things. So it's fine. Now if I give the password, what it is returning? Wrong password. That is how backend developers will communicate with front-end developers to communicate whatever we are giving. So that is how you can clearly check up with the login method. If we give wrong password, it's done. If we give right password, it is success. You can customize it anything here. Whatever string you want to give, you can give. I'll just go with the Boolean way. I'm comfortable in that. You can give your own way. It's up to you. Right? So that is how we have created a simple registration class with the help of hash method, because hash method is completely storing your password. If you want to create one more user, go for it. U2 is equal to, what I'll give U2 is equal to, because you can assign, you can create multiple objects, right? It's up to you. obj2 and I'll give U2 dot sign up of, I'll just give any other name. I'll just give it as Sony and I'll just give the password as 1234. That's it. So what I'll do now, I'll save this and I'll execute this. If you go for users, you see, you should have 2 users. There you go. See, even you can get some negative values. It is fine because it is being updated over there. There is no reason you should get only positive values. If you go for u1.app, you get object 1. If you go for u2.app, it's an object 2. And let's log in with the u2 name, that is u2 of, what is the username? Sony, and I gave the password 1234. You can create multiple things because the password what I gave here, you can just cross check. I think I gave in string. Yes, that is the reason it is giving you false. So it's up to you how do you throw it. Just make sure if it is returning false, that means you have given the wrong password. There you go. That is how we have understood how do you create a simple logic for our registration form. Now what we'll do, we'll try to build an API for this, where we'll give a simple front end, where we include some HTML tags. Then we'll go for adding our Bootstrap library, where we'll be using Sublime text. I'll be making it very simple. If you don't know about anything about Sublime, no issues, we'll just install it and we'll just work on it, right? So your constructor, your sign up method, your login method, everywhere we are using hash method to return the hash value of our password, so that we should not see the password in our output. It should be something like encrypted. You can think in that way. For general terms, it will be easier. Updating and returning. If the condition is matching, it is returning true. If it is not, it is returning false. That's what we have used our control statements and the concept of classes here. Make it simple, practice yourself, it will be very much easier. So we have understood how to create a simple registration form. We have used our sign up and login methods. Mainly, we have just simply used our concept of object-oriented programming system, where the constructor played a very vital role. And the other thing is, we have used hash method to make sure our password returns the hash value, and we have checked with the condition, right? Now the next thing is, yes, we'll be building an API for that, where you can directly go without the HTML tags. But the reason I'm using HTML tags is to make you aware how you can use Python for development purposes. How do you go for web development? It's not that you only write classes concept and you're aware of it. But if you're aiming for development purpose, make sure you need to have some basics of HTML and CSS, very minimal, because everything is open source. You can just go to some documentation and refer it, because the basic HTML tags are very, very important. Because when you refer any web page, even if you go for the sign up web page, go to view page source, you'll be having so many tags here. Yeah, you start with the doc type HTML, because it describes, it basically defines the document type. This is very, very mandatory. We generally write the document type HTML. That is a declaration. It is not a HTML tag. It is basically an information to the browser about what type of document to expect. It is HTML, and we start with HTML tag, because HTML tag is very minimal. It is basically defining a HTML document. Then we have header tags. We have the script containing all the elements, and we just go for writing title. We just declare paragraph tags, everything. This is very, very minimal. And you don't worry, we just need not write all these tags. When you use Sublime, when we declare an opening tag, the closing tags come automatically. The mindset of the designer will be, how does he declare all these JSON data and how does he assign the variables and values to it. That's where with the practice you'll understand. So make it very simple. That is the reason my intention is to just make you understand some simple tags in our building an API, right? So first, the best thing is, we need to go to our environment and start installing the libraries first. So first we'll install Flask. Pip install, we just go for Flask. Pip install Flask. It will tell you requirement satisfied. If it is already done, then you have to template and work. It's dangerous when you're migrating other web pages, markup safe. So this is the Flask version. Then the next thing is, we'll also install Ngrok at the same time, so that there is no need of installation at the end, because finally we'll be hosting our application on Ngrok with the public URL. So pip install Flask -Ngrok. There you go. Then automatically the requirement is satisfied if it is already done. Then we have already successfully installed all the libraries. And if you could see what are the libraries you have, you can go for pip freeze or pip list. It will give you all the libraries along with the versions, package and the version name. They're all packages. So what you'll try to do is, we just freeze them, right? That means I create a requirements text file, that is pip freeze. Make sure you use greater than symbol. What is the file name? It will be automatically created. You can give any name for that. Pip freeze requirements.txt. Press enter. That means if it is successfully executed, go to your location and see you have a requirements file. Open it. There you go. You have all the packages related to not only this project, all the projects what we have done. You can just install it once. That's done, because we just install with Python -m install. We just give requirements.txt. We can just make it simple. Even I'll give that command when I share the project. So it's fine. So now we have successfully installed the packages, and you can just give pip list. You can see Flask and You can see Flask and Ngrok within it. Done, right? Now we'll use this logic. Make sure we'll write a simple Flask application to make our output visible in the browser, not by using very simple notation, but with the help of some tags, right? So let's go for that. We'll just open our registration form.py, and I can just keep this comment, or you can just make it as it is. So it's fine. So first I'll just continue from here what we have given. So we'll just go for from Flask. I'll import our Flask function. So from Flask, import Flask. You can just write in the beginning, or it's up to you. So wherever you read it is fine. Then the next thing is we create a Flask object, right? That is app is equal to, because first I'm building a simple Flask, then we'll go for creating a better front end or building a front end, developing the front end using Bootstrap libraries. So Flask of name. Then what we'll try to do is we'll try to create a simple object so that we call this registration class here. So I'll just give user object is equal to, what is our class name? Register. So you register of, it is expecting some application, so we just throw the app here. That's it, because we have two users declared above, u1 and u2. It's fine. Now what we'll just do is we just route the application. That's what we start doing it, where we'll add some simple tags here. So first we'll start the routing at the rate app dot. The first routing is with slash only. I'm not giving anything over there, where my first method is define. This is something like a home page. In the home page you have sign up and login, right? Yes, we are just giving in that. That means whenever we run the application in the beginning, user should see, that is, you should follow this method to create sign up, because when you directly go to the home page, you'll automatically click. When you just go back, you know where to log in, right? When you go to home page, whatever you click, if you wanted to make a purchase, you need to have an account. So you'll just have it. You always see any web pages will have sign up towards right side only. That's not left side, because that's a standard thing which users are accustomed, users are habituated. So we'll follow the same thing here, where, but we'll not dig into that much of thing. We'll just use first thing to enter in the URL itself. So it should return, we'll start writing tags here. I just go with triple quotes. I use the H tag, which the H tag indicates we are just writing some headings, where we include a simple, always give the tag with less than and greater than symbol. This is the heading, which is, this is our demo Flask app. In that way I'm writing the heading. So you can see when we execute this, you'll understand how does that is represented. And always close the tag /h. This is how you open the tag, and you always get this when you write with Sublime. You can see the tag closing at the end. That's fine. Then just write within the same location. Don't go outside of it, because if you go outside, you are outside the function. So just make sure write the paragraphs. So p tag indicates we can write multiple paragraphs. So I'll just write, for sign up, I should tell user to follow this logic. What is the logic? User should enter /sign up / he should give username / he should give password. This is the symbol, this is the syntax he should follow, and I'll close the paragraph tag. That's it. Because you should tell user whenever he enter into home page, for sign up process he should follow this technique. Then for login, another paragraph tag, I'll just make user for login, you should follow this process. What is the process? He should go for login /login, again /username, again /password. Just close the tag again, so that it will be clear. That means you should see this thing in your web page, because we are returning everything. This is a string, right? You know the logic. That's simple. This is the first routing which we have declared. Then the other routing is, I need to pass the methods, right? What is, for the sign up method, what you should do? Because when the user enters this, he should be able to create an account, right? Right. So for that I create one more routing, that is app dot route of, we just pass it here /sign up. It will give you the different program files, don't worry about it. /sign up /username /password. So this is how when you route it, there you go. That means So make sure when you are giving routing here, this should not be taken in this way because we need to pass the variable names, right? So give tags here less than and greater than symbol, less than symbol and greater than symbol. That is mandatory, and make sure you need not to have slash over there. So this is because you are taking this variable name, so that in the routing, if you are passing in that way, that means we will take those arguments in the function. So what is our function name? Our function name is sign up function. So sign up of, we just throw username and then we just give password. So that will follow the same technique which we have given above, because already we have created sign up function. So I'll just give the object, because for object already we gave register class. We just give user object dot, I'll just throw sign up. So with sign up, what we need to give? We are giving username and we are giving password. That's it. Then what it should return? For returning, I am just, so once you are signed up, it should tell you have successfully created an account, right? Yes. So for that, I'll be using a simple, well-known scrolling tag, which is mark tag, where for the mark tag, you will be giving scroll bar. If you can give h tag, it is fine. Where I want to just make user bit some exciting, so for that I'll be giving mark tag. Mark tag is generally used for scrolling purposes, which looks very much better. So you need not worry about the tags over there. It is very much easier to understand. So we use mark tag generally for the scrolling purpose. You see the scrolling bar generally on the web pages, that is with mark tag. So it should take username, because we are giving f string over there. F string curly braces will have username, because I don't know who I have created. So it should return with the username. Username have registered successfully, or username, your registration is success. Whatever string you want written, you can just return it. It's up to you. Have registered successfully and close the mark tag. So just make sure, you just give the mark tag ending here. There is no need of slash over there, because this is the scrolling bar. It is fine. This is not specifically like p tag and h tags. It is a bit different, so that you get the scrolling. This is for the sign up method. The same process for login method. Just go for app.route. Just give login, and the same thing when you go for variable name, username, give it as a variable name, that is username slash, the same thing for password. When you go for password, we do the same thing. And just make sure define the method. What is the method you try to give here? Login. Again in the login, just throw same username and password, so that you need to verify it, right? So for verification, again you need to go with the objects with the class, initializing the object. So I'll just create an authorization variable, so that we need to go for user object dot login, because we have two methods, right? Login, sign up, and the object is app over there. So that's what we have seen in the earlier video. When you initialize an object to register class, the same thing here, username comma password. There you go. Here we write some conditions, because once the login is successful, if it is successful, it should return something. If it is not successful, it should tell another thing, where I return f string, where I'll give a simple paragraph tag, username logged in successfully, because we don't know who has logged in, right? So for anyone, it should tell the same thing with their username. Username logged in successfully, and close the p tag. No need of closing over there, because we are just giving multiple tags. It's fine. Then we just give else, because you know how to end the condition, right? Just go for else, return f tag and initialize the p tag over there. These are multiple paragraphs. That is the reason I'm not closing them. But for them, I'm closing it, because when you have paragraph tags over there, you will just understand when we initialize this. So paragraph of, again username, we are just giving, he has entered wrong credentials. That's what you are giving. Wrong credentials entered. We are just making it him to please do check. That's what I'm telling user to check it, and I'll just give the paragraph tag here, close quotation. Make sure you are good at writing quotations. If you have any mistake over there, just cross check. That's how we have created login method. And finally, I want to throw one more method where I want to see users detail. So for that, what I'll do is I'll just give routing method for users data. That is I give, because users is my dictionary, slash users slash data, and I define my method. My method name is users data. I don't pass any keyword argument because I did not mention any variable name over there, right? Yes, it would simply return our dictionary, that is return users. The password is of hash format. That's it, because we are just making sure if we have defined in this way, it is clear. Then you know how to run it, right? You just give if dunder name is equal to main. You already know this, how to run the Flask application, and make sure you throw debug is equal to true. App.run, you just give debug is equal to true, which we have learned earlier itself, because we already understood why do we write debug is equal to true, because it is as simple as it is, right? When you go for debug is equal to true, that is during development. If it is generally go for debug equal to false, we are going for the deployment of production. Development is different, production is different. That's it. Now let's verify it. Let's cross check once again by going each and every method. So first we have imported Flask. App is equal to Flask of name, user object equal register of app. Routing, when we enter slash, we should see this is our demo Flask app. We should see all of them. Then user will follow with this. That means you should give your username here, give your password. Then when you go for login, it will tell you logged in successfully, wrong credentials. If you enter wrong credentials, there you go. Some simple spelling mistakes, it's fine. You just recover it, right? Now, when you enter slash user slash data, you should see the list of users. I mean, the dictionaries of values inside a dictionary. Interesting, right? Now, let's execute this, because you're running Flask application. Don't run in the interactive shell. Go to your command prompt. I'm in the particular project folder. How do you run a Python file? Give Python space. What is the file name? Registration form.py. Hit enter. Your Flask app is running, registration form, production, and debugger pin is different now. So this is a development server. Do not use it in production deployment. Now copy this URL. So when you paste this URL in the browser, first you will see your home page. Paste it here, hit enter. There you go. This is your demo Flask app, because we gave this as a heading, and you can make it bold. You can work on HTML tags to make it more customized. This is for login. That means when I enter slash sign up, so first let's see if I give slash users slash data, what happens. See, we already gave two usernames, right? Because Saket and Sony, because that's what we have given in the program itself. If you remember, we gave these things. Now what I'll do is I'll create new users. So for that, so first I'll give slash sign up slash, I'll just give red slash, his username is his password is 1234. Hit enter. There you go. You see a scrolling bar. So for this scrolling bar, I gave mark tag. You could see some scrolling bar moving over there for the funny thing, right? So then make sure I'll give login in this. I'll just make sure I'll enter login in it. Then automatically red logged in successfully. That's it. You just check with the user's data. Then you can see this particular red details have been saved. There you go, red and the hash code. That's it. You can check your status codes also. You can see the 200 status, 404 one time, and 200 status is okay. Every time you could see the traffic over here. That means generally we are able to clearly create a new users, and when you enter and when you go for home page, it will tell you, it will just make sure that you see the details of the user. That is basically it will tell you, it will just tell you what is happening in the home page. The home page is demo Flask app and for slash sign up. That's it. If you want to get one more thing, just go once slash sign up slash code slash 7894. Anything you can give. There you go. Code have registered successfully. That's it. You can see a close tag over, mark tag, just scrolling. And if you want to log in, just make sure if you give anything like this, login off. Let me give some wrong password. I'll just give 789 only. Code, wrong credentials, please do check. We are giving warning here because we gave 789 because you know it, right? We are giving password in that. That's it. Now, when you go for users data, you could see this particular details have been entered. That is red. You can see the hash code. It may be negative value. It is fine. That is returning in the format of a dictionary. And you can see the status in your command prompt. That is how we have successfully created a API for our registration form. A simple front end where you have some heading tags, which we have given the heading tags, and where we gave a paragraph tag, right? So, and the scrolling tag. Now what we'll do is, in the next video, we'll use some Bootstrap library to have some simple login button, register button. When we click that, you could see a dialog, you could see a box to enter, where I'll use some HTML files. I'll just make you aware of those tags where we'll be using Sublime Text Editor to understand it. This is the same code I'll be using, but I'll be making some simple changes in the methods. So I'll create some new methods and I'll make it understand another way. With this, you are done. Your registration form is done. Your simple project is done. But I'll make it more better so that we'll use our tags over there. We'll use our HTML file. I'll connect my Flask. This is backend to our front-end library, that is HTML, CSS stylings, where with the help of mainly Bootstrap, I'll be using one scripting style over there. You could see how does this Flask will communicate with our HTML file, that is front-end and backend. Just make sure you follow this thing, where we have changed, what tags we have used, what happens if you remove the tags. You can clearly work on it, and make sure if you have any queries, I'm there to help you out. Just make it simple, work on it, and in the next video, we'll be working on our front end to develop better front end by using Bootstrap. So we have built a simple Flask application where we have just used some simple tags like paragraph tags, header tags, and we have used just a scrolling bar, right? Now we'll just modify our same Flask application where we'll develop a simple front end better than this, where we can have some buttons, some grid system, and to understand that I'll be just making sure I'll not write any script directly. I'll just tell how to use the Bootstrap, because it is one of the widely used responsive libraries which are generally used in web development, where how do we communicate, how our Python program communicates with our front end. That is my intention in this video. If it is bit long, just don't make it worry, right? So first we'll be modifying our registration.py, where we just need to modify this, where we need to import some additional libraries over there, because anyways to host it you'll be using Ngrok. But now before that we need to go for some giving the libraries, which includes rendering templates, where our Flask should communicate with our web page, right? Because we have already used the variable names. And to render the templates, what do you mean by template over there? Basically, when you go for template is basically HTML file. How does our program will communicate with the HTML file? For that, Flask directly provide, because there is a difference between a static file and dynamic file, right? When you go for static file, basically it is similar, because static content is any content that can be delivered to the end user. But if it's dynamic, it keeps on changing, right? That's where static website, dynamic website. If you have a login, it is dynamic. If you don't have any login, you just have information, that's a static website. So our Flask application will provide with these some libraries or some functionalities to render the template, because generating HTML from within Python is not easier, right? So we have some pretty tasks to do that, because already Flask will configure the Jinja to template automatically, but to render the HTML web pages, because we write the method and we return the render template. So for that, we need to use some functions like this, where first we'll be using render template. That is very, very important. So first I'll write render underscore template. These are available within Flask only. Then we'll be using request, or obviously to request this particular web page information. Then we'll be using 3 other libraries, which includes 4 other, like Flash, redirecting, URL for, and session. These are very, very important, and I'll tell in very simple way why we are using it. When we are going for with the render template, we'll be obviously going for the URL for, because we generally use URL for is basically to make sure how do we communicate with our web page. That is nothing but good applications and your user interfaces are all about feedback. That is the reason Swiggy, Zomato, they keep on updating it mainly something like not every time in a month, basically at least twice a month, or 2 times every month, or I'm not 2 months later or 3 months, they're just doing it, right? So that is the reason we'll be using some basic methods within it to communicate with our front-end web pages. For that, we'll be using URL for to communicate with the web pages, and to handle the logs we'll be using logging, and to get the result in a better way we'll be using flash method. So we'll just import all of them to make sure. If we don't import them, you can see a delay in your response. That is the reason I'll be just taking all of them. We are already present in your Flask. We just call them flash, redirect, URL for. If you start keeping practicing, it will be easier. URL for, and the other thing is session, and the other one is logging, because every time when you log into a web page, your logs are stored, right? So render template, flash, redirect, URL for, session, logging. I will be taking all of them. Now what I will do is, I will just keep some changes over here. First, I will start with my home page, where it should return not this content, but it should return a render template. So what I will do is, first I need to have a folder which is called as templates folder, because Flask will search for the templates folder. That is the reason. If you don't have templates folder, because in templates folder generally we will be creating our static files, which can be our in templates folder we'll be having our HTML files. To have our CSS or JS files, we'll be having static folder, because static templates are very important when you go for building web applications. So what I'll do is, first I'll create a folder. So I'll just close this. In my building API, I need to create a new folder called as templates. First I'll create a folder. There you go. Because this folder should have HTML files. I need to have 3 HTML files, right? Because first is the home page, then the registration page, then login page, right? So create 3 pages over there. You can directly go to your command prompt. Just go to the templates folder. In templates folder, I use same notepad. What is my first file name? That is index.html. It's up to you, whatever the names you give. Those names are not necessary, because generally index.html is the first page. It will ask you whatever we are throwing. So we have index.html. Then I create the other thing is register. This is for the register page, that is register.html. It will again ask, you want to create? Yes, I will throw it. Then again I use notepad. This is for the login, because now we are communicating with the HTML web pages. For that reason we have used all of them. Just create this. Click on yes. There you go. Then if you go to the folder, you have all these. These are empty files, right? Now what you need to do? You need to communicate with them. You need to write some code over there. Wait, you need not remember any code over there. I'll be using a well-known responsive library which is Bootstrap. But first let's write our Python code. Then I'll go for installing Sublime Text and we'll understand it. So in my home, I'll just keep all of these comments first, because I don't want to use them. So I just try to keep here. I just give return render underscore template. So render template function, what it should return? It should go to index.html, because in the index.html we'll write some code over there, where it will ask for, previously it asked for the sign up username, it asked everything, right? In the place of this, I'll give 2 buttons, which is login and register. But for that we need to write some HTML code over there. Well, that I'll be doing it now. Then for the routing, we'll just make some changes. So what I'll do is, I'll keep this thing starting from this. I'll keep everything as comment. Let's make sure we use hashtags over there, because we have triple quotes over here. So I'll keep all of these routing as hashtag, because I create new routings for this new method so that it will be easier. Yes, it's fine. Now we'll create a new routings with these names. So I just start with register form @app.route. You can customize it, it's up to you. So my routing is register. That's it. Where I'll use my methods. What are the methods? First, I need to get the information and create a new resource. That's where we use get and post. That is the reason yesterday we have discussed about these methods. You can combinedly use them. Get, yesterday in the sense that's in the previous videos we have discussed. So we have taken this get and post methods. Now what I will do is, I define a function. My function name is register. Once we write the Python code, then we'll go for creating the HTML file, because we just gave index.html. You shouldn't run the Python file directly. So in the register method, we'll just pass some conditions. That means if request.method, if my request.method is equal to post, that is nothing but if we are creating new resource, what's that? Username is equal to, how should it fetch? We should pass the same variables. Request.form, we need to fetch the username, because we'll be using some form methods and buttons. I'll be taking everything from Bootstrap website only, because developers don't remember. They know the logic, how to write the syntax and how to write the code. Then everything is open source. It's all about how do we fetch the details. Then this is for password. For the password also, I'll take request.form of password, fetching the, because we have created it as a dictionary. Then we just give users of username. Users of username is equal to password. If you want to make it hash, it's up to you. You can just make it where if it is successful, what I am telling, it should return you have successfully registered. Username, I am not using any formatting method. It is directly I am giving successfully registered, where I am using a format method but not a string method. I am just giving it is successfully registered. There you go. Where you go for dot format of what you throw here, you will throw here username, that is uname, because you gave uname equal to request. That's it. Then we just need to return, what we need to return for this function? We just need to return the render template of register form, which we need to yet create. We just pass the name here, render template of, what is the file name we gave? The file name is register.html. Just make sure you give the names correctly. Register.html. Yes, register.html. That's it. Because we'll write the logic in that. This is our register method. Right? That means when I give /register, I should go to that web page. Then another routing is for the login, right? I just give @app.route. I just mention /login. The same thing which we have done in the earlier, we have mentioned the tags over there. But now I want to use the methods in my code, where the other methods are get and post, because we need to see the result, right? So get is for the creating and post is, get is for reading information, post, you know already how do you create a resource. Then we start creating the method. The method is login, where if the username is matching, it should. If request dot method, if you understand the logic, you can combine both the codes. It's up to you. I'm just making it how better ways you can communicate your Flask with your web page, how you can communicate with your Flask with your HTML code. So then if username is matching, if username is equal to, we just give request dot again form of username. If it is matching, then password. You can also print them in the back end, but it's not good. Just you can keep them as comment. But for your understanding, I can make it username of password. You can just print them for your while, where you can see the result in your command prompt. Print uname, and you can give print password. We are not hashing it. We can, which I already told you how to use the hash method. Then you can also print the users, everything. This is with a condition, right? What happens if the username and the things are not matching? That's where I write exceptions, right? We should be clear, right? If you are having any errors, then automatically it should throw you those results, right? So we just use exception. I'll just write if users of uname is matching with the password, right? If it is matching with the password, then it should return successfully, he is successfully registered. Username has successfully logged in. Any string, it's up to you, you can write. And I'll just give here format of uname. That's it. This is the complete logic which we are giving. If it is not matching, what you'll throw? You can throw it as return wrong password. That means we'll make it to check again. In this way, we'll prompt user to enter. That is for the else condition. And even if we write one more final exception, if it is not matching, we'll just throw except. We'll finally return here also. We'll just return. We'll tell user that is it is wrong password. Anything, because if it is failing over there, it will come over here. That's it. This is the logic we have given. And finally, we'll return the render template. This is very important. With this logic only, you could see the result on the web page. What is our rendering template here? It is login.html, because render template will send context to our web pages. That is to send context, whatever the context, whether it is index.html or anything. It is index, register, login. Then finally, if you want to see the result, app.route, that is same. Right now, our logic is we need to write the HTML tags in our web page, right? I mean HTML code. So for that, if you want to write directly, you can just right click and open with. Generally, you have Notepad. We don't have Sublime Text. If we have Visual Studio, it's up to you. But I'll be making use of the well-known editor, which is Sublime. Just type Sublime in browser. You could see the well-known sophisticated text editor for code and markup languages. It very well communicates with Python. You can use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, any programming language. If you communicate front end with back end, just go to the home page. You can just study on this. It is very important. You have some shortcuts over here. It provides a command line palette. You can include multiple folders over here. So just click on download for Windows. Then you could see it is downloading. You can wait for a while. You could see once it is installed, it is very simple to log in. Once it is installed, we can just go for some installation process. Once it is downloaded, we can go for it. Let it get downloaded. It is taking. It depends on internet connection. You could see some documentation here. It is also giving for premium model, but it is fine. We can just go with the free version. Even though it may give some pop-up in the beginning. You can see every code with the .py or .c. You can communicate with the HTML files and everything. So that's how we'll be using Sublime Text, where we'll communicate with our front end is communicating with the back end. So that is very important. Once it is downloaded, we'll start working on it. It's taking just 9 more seconds. It's only very little file, which is around 10.4 MB, Sublime Text 3, where we'll be using, the next thing is we'll be using our Bootstrap. This is very important, and where it's Bootstrap, sorry, I gave spelling mistake here, even though it is written incorrect. Bootstrap, because it is the most popular HTML, CSS and JS library. It's an open framework, and it is just came back around 10 years ago. It is mostly responsive, where you need not dig on to making another format for mobile, because it provides you mobile first front-end development, right? Just open this. We need not install it. We'll just go with get started, and we'll use the same. See, we'll first use this styling thing. I think it is installed, right? So once it is downloaded, I'll go to my downloads and I'll just install it. I'll just install the Sublime Text. You just allow it. It will take some couple of minutes. If it is fine, you can, it is just asking location, just click on next, just click on next. It is a location, it is install. It will just take couple of minutes. It is done, successfully installed. Then go to your project folder. Our project folder is building API and templates. Now you can right click on this and click on with open with Sublime Text. That's it. Where you can see if you have any previous folder, it will ask. See, it is directly opening with the index.html, right? Index.html. Open all the files at a time. Open file. Just click on register and login. Now we'll start writing our code, because generally when you start writing the tags, head, see, when you start writing, it automatically give you the closing tag, right? So first we'll go for index.html, where that is our home page, right? So the first thing always we do when you're writing HTML tags is we'll start with the doc type. That is very important. Doc type will tell you what is the doc type which we are giving. So generally doc type it will mention what is the declaration. It provides information to the browser. So that is very important. Just start writing with that. So it is exclamatory mark, and we just go for doc type. We are mentioning that is HTML. Make sure you give this everything as caps. So doc type of, see it is changing into color and HTML. So just close the tag. So here we'll write our head tags and all those tags, but before that we need to mention the next important tag is HTML, because we just start with HTML because we are writing HTML document only. No, that is the reason we just need to mention the HTML tag. So we'll just go with the simple tags. We need not worry, you need not remember any of the tags, because doc type will tell you what is the document type, and HTML tag will just make sure you start the document, that is HTML. So we just need to mention that. That is the reason we are just using HTML. We just need to mention that. So if you don't mention, it defines the, it will create an issue. So for that reason, I'll just go to my Bootstrap web page, where if you see here, we'll be using this CDN style, and if you scroll down, it is giving you the language and the header tag, what is the character set. I'll just copy this because whatever we need to do, we'll be following the same. So first I'll copy this. You need not remember the code. We just follow the same thing. Just go to your Sublime Text and paste it here. The language is English, and we start our head tag, right? If you start the head tag, just close the tags. So we will mention here character set. See, make sure the spacing is mandatory. This spacing will allow you how you are communicating with the web page. We need to mention the character set, and we'll go for the character set is UTF-8 because we are using the HTML web page. So character set is very, very important. When you are mentioning character set, it is basically identical to ASCII values. So UTF-8 is very, very important. That's where the character set is. It's a variable with character encoding for the communication. So that is very, very important. We'll just give that as meta tag. So we'll just copy it from here. You need not worry about it because we follow this simple syntax. Then we'll need to make it as responsive, right? So the meta name is viewport, where I'll just mention width device initial scale is 1, because he clearly tells you that we need to make sure we can communicate that thing to a web page. See, Bootstrap is developed with mobile first because it is mainly responsive. Whether you go for zooming or anything, we just need to make this viewport available. So that is very, very important. We just make sure that is available. So no need to write anything. You just need to understand how do you use this Bootstrap. That's it. Initial scaling is 1.0. You can mention it, where I just need to make sure my width device, it can be used in any kind of screen. We optimize the code for mobile devices first and then scale up these components. That is the reason meta name is viewport and content is width device width. That is the reason we just gave that. And then once we are good in writing up this, it is very much easier. We'll just mention the title tag, because our title is whatever title you want to give, you can just mention it. When you just write title, it will suggest you, it will just also ask for the ending tag. So our title is login and registration. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure first I'll give registration form, and then we'll just give it is login. You can give anything in this way. This tag is closed. Then we add some styling over it, right? So for that styling, I'll use my Bootstrap CDN. So where we'll just go for here. So we'll just copy paste the style sheet link before all other style sheets to load our CSS. I want to load the CSS, right? I just use this href because generally we use href tags to make sure we add the href tag is basically used in HTML, so that we just add the attributes to specify the URL. A tab is for generally giving hyperlink. So href is generally used to specify the URL of that web page. So for that reason, I'll just copy this. We need not write anything over there. We just copy to clipboard and go to your reference here and you paste it here. Automatically that link is being assigned. That's it. We need not do anything. So finally, this is our, before loading our CSS and writing these things, we gave the which device it should be available and what is the title of it, and we start our headings. So we have started our headings, right? We just need to close the heading here. That's it. You just close the heading here. It's clear. Now we write the body of the web page. That means where you need to have some login and sign up buttons, right? So for that reason, we'll start using our division tags, where generally division tags play a very vital role, because if you need to understand about the div tags, it is very essential, because div tags play a very vital role in the web page. It defines a particular section of that document where you add some elements to it, where you define the container for the elements, where you go for stylings and adding the web page support. You define everything in the div tag. So for that reason, we just start writing the containers over it. So we'll just go with the same Bootstrap only, where we need not remember any of the code. As I mentioned, you just need to follow with the tags over there. So we just mention the body of it, the body tag, where I'll start my div tag. So my div tag will start with the container class. So I'll just make sure I write it here. So class is equal to container, because how I am able to remember this, you can just go to the grid system, because when you define a web page, you go with the grids of it. So just type grid in this, automatically it will tell you powerful mobile first, because we just divide into a 12 column system, that is 6 default responsive tiles. That means if you see any web page, if I just maximize this, if you just scroll it here, you can see the content is not anywhere defined, anywhere rearranged it. You can see the content B is responsive, because this web page is responsive. Now we'll use this grid system, where if you want to have 3 columns, you could mention this class as container, 3 equal width columns. If you want to break it, you can just use it, whether you need to go for how many number of pixels you want to have. In that way, you can just mention. If you want to have you want to have only 2 grids, you can just 1 of 2 here, 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. If you want to have 3, we can just mention it to defining the column names over there. That is setting the column names. So where we'll just mention this column SM, where to make it responsive over there. So I'll just follow the same single set. If you want to have this sets over there, we just define the same thing in our web page, where I define the class as container, and another thing, I'll define my tag here. So I define the class. So here my class will be the row style, because you can see here the row style which we have defined above, the same thing we'll define here. I'll define my row and the style, which includes the margin. So style is equal to, where I just define, see these properties will automatically come, you need not define over there, where I define with 40 pixel. It's up to you how much you define. So we have defined the class, and we define one more div tag every section. So here I define my class. So my class within the tags only, just mention the class here, where I want to define it into 2 grids only. Something like if we have 3 grids over there, you define column in this way. Or if I want to have single set, I'll just mention in this, because I want to follow this single set. So I'll define column SM of 6, where define 2 tags over there. So I just define 6 6 in 6 6 way, where I have only 2 buttons, right? That is the reason I define column SM. I'll just define single set. SM stands for the single set over there. So I'll just enter into this, and I'll define one more tag. So my tag would be, where I define class again, I'll make it column SMC, because we have already defined it, and we pass the attributes, where A tag is for getting the reference, hyperlink, href is for the reference to the web page. So I'll just define my A tag here. So just make sure you scroll down. So this class is particularly closed, and type A tag. So href is equal to, where what is the reference, which is for the login. So we just mention it as login, and your class we need to have some buttons over there, right? Yes. So for the buttons, we'll just go to the Bootstrap web page, and whatever type of button you want to have. If you want to have such kind of buttons, see left, middle, right, you can just give primary, left, middle, right. So you need to go for form controls over there. So here we just need to have what kind of button. If you want to have danger symbol, you can use this. You can use this class, and you can use this. So button outline primary, we can use all of this, right? If it is primary, you can see how does this is happening. So if you want to have success, you can use this, where I want to just use along with this button, I want to have form control, because when I click that particular, I should go to a next web page, right? So I'll just type form controls over here. I'll open a new web page where if you go for form control, how you are just styling your input over there. That means which type of box you want, right? So for that, if I want to have email and username and password, 2 buttons, it is fine. I could just use that. So I'll write form control here, where form label, you have everything. So you can just confirm it. So in that way, we'll just write our form control. So login is equal to, so the class here is btn button form. What kind of form you want? If you want to this button control form, if you want to have it in the format of success or anything, it's up to you. So I'll just take this. I'm not writing anything my own. I'm just knowing it from the Bootstrap only. In the same way, we'll communicate with this. So button form control will just give this for the button success, right? So it is clear. That is for the, you are just making it for the login. Just communicate it with the login only. It will be easier. So button form control, button success, we need to close the tag over there along with the login. So then only it will communicate. So we are just closing it with the login. It should, yeah. So login with the reference tag and close the div tag. We already have the closing div tag here, right? Just take this to the ending, then it would be easier. Yeah. Now you could see the reference is login, button form control, button success. That means when we hit that, we should be able to see the success thing. So definition my template, and next we'll go for another tag where I need to give one more column for the register, right? This is for the login, this is for the register. I'll just copy the same thing and I'll change one more tag. I'll just copy the same thing and in place of login, I'll just give register. It will throw you the name, just need not worry about the names. Same button form control, if you want primary or secondary, whatever we have seen in the web page, you can pass the same thing, because in the web page is clearly mentioning what kind of button you want. If you want to have warning, just use this. So the name of it and the tags to be closed. So I want to have primary, this is the outline, so I can use that. You can use your own thing, it's up to you. I'll use this primary. So login, in place of login, what is this? We just need to have register. That's what I give. So the link tabs are closed and this div tag is closed. These 3 closing div tags, right? So I think, yeah, it's fine. So this div tag is closed, this div tag is closed, this is closed, this is closed, this is closed. See the lines over there. If it is correct, then it is fine. So save it and go to the web page. And if you open this web page, you could see these 2 buttons. That's it. See, there is no functionality now. We have got 2 buttons, register button, because we did not write the backend code over there, right? Now, we'll render it, because when I click login, what should happen? When I click register, what should happen? That is success, how you got 2 buttons over there, because we have arranged it in the format of grid over there. You can use this grid. Don't worry about the code, just write the tags over there. How do you add the reference links? How do you add the div tags for each section? Now for registration, we'll write our code. Same for registration, you copy the same thing what you have defined. First the doc type and everything. You can just copy till here. You can just copy till here. The same thing for every web page. Even for login also copy the same thing. But here we'll add the title. Our title is, this is the registration page, right? So you add the title tag. The title tag, this is registration, or you just go for register. The title you see on the web page, that is register Flask. Then same CDN for your Bootstrap, the same link, just copy it, because we are using the same thing. We need not customize anything. Bootstrap provides you everything over there, and we just need to close the header tag, right? So first close the header tag, then this heading is closed over there. So when you just close, when you write head, it automatically close it. You could see the lines over there. That means the particular code is correct. If you have any spacing errors, it will avoid you. That's it. Then you write your body. Just mention the body tag over here, where again I'll write the containers, but here we need to include some methods over there. That methods include, how do you write it? So first let me go for the buttons. Instead of buttons here we have this in form controls, you see the div and containers. So if I go to the same home page of Bootstrap, I'll just show you. In the Bootstrap, you could see when you click on get started, you could see the containers here, right? So the containers, when I just scroll down, this is for the sizing. And when I go for the form controls, I think in the form controls we have seen how do you write the content, for the buttons, and how do you, when you go for the grouping of the buttons, how do you write the content over there, and in the form controls, how do you write it. And in this is the customizing layout overview of it. So when you go for the overview of it, he'll tell you how do you retain the containers. We have everything over there, right? We just follow the same thing which we have discussed in the previous. So I'll just define the tags over there. First I'll write my class is container, because I want to give for the because we have seen that thing in the grid system. So in the grid system, how we are using it, because if you want to have this 3 tile, because he clearly tells that, remember, read these lines, 12 column system, 6 default, 6, that is 12. So we are defining this class container. Just follow the same thing here. The class is container. That's it. So div class is equal to, because we are closing it here, you should not close it here. So now the class is container. Now before closing the tag, just go for another div tag where the margin, so row style, I'll copy this thing, the same thing I'm using. So I'll just copy the same thing over here. So it will be easier instead of wasting the time. So div class row style margin same 40 pixel. Here I'll give my action where I'll just give my form. So my form, because I'll just give the form. So my method is post. That's where we check with the web page where we are posting it. That means we are creating a new resource. And again, without closing the form, we just define our divs and tag again, where we mention the class again, it is container. Where, so here class, again no need of container, because already you have defined here. You need to go for the grouping of the form. That means you need to take the username and password, because you are in registration page, right? So you define here something like form group. So I just define it as form group so that it will be easier, where I'll take it from the user. So here I'll take the label and the inputs, because you know the label tags and the input tags. Because what do you mean by a label generally? If so, ID card is your label, right? In the same way, you have these tags for giving the input and for generally taking the labels. So because label tag plays a very vital role in HTML. Basically, when you go for giving the text label, or we define with the input tag, it is for the normal text, and we define with the label tag, we define the text. So we go for the input, we just define input function. So I define here label so that I take it up. So label, so just don't close the tags. For you can just pass any name here for username or anything. I'm just giving email. You can give anything over there. That means we need to check with the username. So first I'll ask the username, and where we'll enter the username. So the label tag is closed. That is perfect. Then for the next thing, you need to enter the input, right, for the text. So input type. What is the type we should define over there? The type is only text format. That's it. And how do you fetch the name? We need to fetch the name as uname, because we have defined the same thing in our code. Just follow this uname, request.form. Now we'll be using this. So request.form name is equal to uname, and our class is basically form control, not form group, which is basically form control, so that we just see the web page data. And the reference ID is username, because we need to tally with the username only. That's it. Then we close the division tag. This is for the username, and we create one more class for the password, right? The same thing you do it, where once we give this division class, it's done. Then form method is post, and div class we'll copy the same thing till this. I'll just copy it, and once the tag is closed, I'll paste form group and label for is here. Just give any label name here. Now instead of username, we need to mention here password. we need to mention here password, and this particular label is closed. Input type is equal to text, and here name is equal to not uname, it is basically password, because we'll fetch the same thing from our web page here, PASSW. That is very important. And same form control, and here instead of uname, that is password. That's it. Now when we fill this, we should have a submit button, right? Yes. Now close this div tag, it's done. Now we need to define a button over there. So for buttons, you know, right, how to define a button. The button name is, how do you define the submit button? So type is equal to, you just need to have, if you want to have submit, you can just give it, and the class you define within it, whatever we have seen earlier, the class is equal to, how do you have button form control, the same thing. Button form control, what we have defined, the same thing you can give, button form control. I'll just copy the same thing here, and in which way you want button, you can just use it, whether you follow my thing or outline, whatever you give, whether you take primary or anything, it's up to you. I'll just take one simple thing, where for the button form control, I want to have this outline information, so that when I click it, I could see it. So form information, and what I want to see, for this I want to see the registration, that is the button name is register, and I close the button tag, and form is closed. Make sure we have closed all the div tags. How many div tags are open? 1 2 3. These lines are clear, and these 3 div tags should be closed. So once we have closed the h tags along with the HTML tag, that should also be closed. So in this div tag, so for this, these two, and I think for this div tag we have closed it. Okay, this is clear. Just you can make it enter down, so that you could refer each div tag. So this div tag, this div tag, this div tag, body is closed. Then close our HTML tag, so which we have defined the body. So close HTML. See, automatically you get all of these things. You need not need all of these type. There you go. So finally everything is correct over here. Now if you see this web page, go to your folder and see this. When you go for register, you are not seeing anything over here. That means which you need to go for running the code when you enter the username and password, right? So we have clearly closed each and every detail over there along with the tags. Just make sure if you have any error, you could see while closing the tags. So this div tag is closed with this, this is with this, this is with this div tag, body and HTML. That's good. Then finally we'll go for login. For the login, I have used the same thing. This div tag should be closed. I think it is expecting one more div tag. Yeah. Fine. Yes, this div tag, it need one more div tag. I think I have defined that thing here. So it's not needed here. I'm sorry for that. It's needed here, where this div tag is closed. It's good now. Now it's clear. Every div tag is closed. Form, div, and finally we'll close HTML. That's it. I think it's clear now. Just go to your web page and refresh. See, now it is 1 KB. That means when you open, you see username, password, this register. For this outline, I gave in that way. Don't get the logic now because you are in your templates. Then finally, we'll go for the login. Very good. Because if you don't close the tags, you cannot see the memory over there. So just go to the login and follow the same techniques, same stylings. Title will change it. We'll change the title to login page. We'll just scroll down. We'll just change the title to, that is not register. We'll go for login. That's it. Then title, you can have it in the above or below. It's fine. Let's try to add it below. What happens if we add it below? It's fine. You can add it below also. So title tag, and we have given the styling, and same, just close the header tag. Fine. Now we add the sections where we go for body, and we'll copy the same thing where we'll just say change some names over here. What I'll do is I'll just copy the entire body tag, and I'll just make sure we'll just try to close it at the end. Now I'll save this and I'll copy here, right? So body, so div class is equal to container, and same row, style, margin, and I'll mention column. Here same form method, and for here same username, label, input type text, username, class, form control, id name, div tag is close, form, email, password. So password, because when you enter this you should be able to see, and again no need of register here. What you need to see over there, you need to see login. That's it, mention login in that, then it's done. Button is closed, form is closed, 3 div tags, and just close the body tag also. It's done. Then it is finally done for your code, because we are just mentioning the same thing. Just go to your, yes, you see now it's login also you have in this way, username, password, login. That's it, we have gave our front end code. So now you are good to go for running your Python script, because we have given our front end with HTML, that is we have included mainly Bootstrap libraries. That HTML file is including stylings with the help of Bootstrap, which has CSS styling over there. You need not worry, because we made it very simple. So we just run our Python file. Python, what is our file name? Registration form.py. So when the Flask generates this URL, what is it first having? Because we gave in the home, we gave index.html, right? So we just go to the web page and we paste it here, hit enter. There you got login, register, and the name of this web page is registration form. Because whatever web page you open, see, they have some names over this. The same way we gave title, that means that is the title of the web page, which we have clearly mentioned in our index.html, right? Then go for it, just click on register, just give the names. Suppose I'll give code and I'll give the name 1457, right? Code 1457. So before registering, click the /register form, whatever we have, just go to the register.html. We gave it, just go for the Python file in /register. Okay, methods are get and post, whatever we are posting, request.username, password, successfully done. But how does it validating? When you go for post method, okay, request.form, you should print this here. That's the mistake. It's a syntactic mistake. You see, registers if users of uname, that is not string format, because that's a key. So save this and go to your web page. So hit on register. There you go. Code is successfully registered. And now click on login here. So you should see when you go for login, you enter your username. The username is code. What is the password I gave? 1457. Hit enter. There you go. Code has successfully logged in, because we have gave the same thing in our code. What happens if we give wrong username? That means I'll enter into home page. I'll go to login. I'll just give code and I'll give 1478. It is wrong password, check again. So that is how we could see the details. See, the users, it is wrong thing to store over here, but it's fine for your understanding. I gave it over there, and even you can check the users data here. You should give /users/data. It may take some time to load, it's fine. You can just give Ctrl+C over there. You could see code, Saket Reddy, one, because these two are built in, which in our Python file you could see over here, which we have already given the objects, and here this is the particular person. So that is how we have clearly developed a simple front end by using Bootstrap libraries for index, index.html, register, login. So that is how we could make it very simple with the help of Bootstrap. You could only hear here the div tags and the forms. I just made it from the Bootstrap website only. We did not write down our remembering the code. We just go to Bootstrap website, how to add buttons, how to add grids, how to add options. Just make it, because Bootstrap is a well-known responsive library in 21st century, because we mainly develop applications with Bootstrap, and most of the developers, 70%, they use it, because it depends only on the way you write the code, right? This is how we have communicated our Python code with our front end. So we have successfully developed our front end using Bootstrap, where we have used some simple techniques when we have gone for Bootstrap. If you could see here in index, register, and login HTML, I have directly used it from this buttons and grid system, everything from the Bootstrap website only. It's not copying. Basically, we just need to understand how do you customize your web page, how do you add the tags, how do you add these links, and how do you get the title, everything. Just make sure you practice it. You can give more stylings for your buttons and make it more interesting. Next, the final thing is we will try to host our Flask application with the help of a public URL, which is Ngrok. Already we have installed Ngrok, right? We just go to calling those functions here. I mean calling those libraries, that is from flask underscore ngrok. We just import run with ngrok, right? We just import run with ngrok and we run our application with the ngrok directly, and we'll change one more line. That's it. Run with ngrok, and you just close your application. Finally, you just need to mention not debug is equal to true, just run the application, because debug is equal to true is for your Flask application when we are in development, not in production, right? That's it. We have already seen how to run our Flask application with Ngrok. We gave the same thing over here. Now I'll go to my project folder. First, I'll activate my environment, right? So first we'll activate the environment and we'll go for executing it. So I'll go to my project folder where I'll just activate the environment by giving /scripts and /activate. There you go. Now go to your project folder. Our project folder is building API, and we run our application now. Python, what is the file name? Registration form.py. You should be able to see the tunnel being popped up over there. If it is closing, it's fine. Again go to the location, because it may happen sometimes. No worries. Then again activate the environment, because we're in the virtual environment, it may try to bother you for the first time, but you should activate the environment and you should just try it again, because that's how you learn, right? So you just go to your project folder, and this time you'd be able to see, run the Python file. You should see a terminal being popped up. Yes, you got it over there. Just wait for the connection. You should see the traffic stats over there, 40:40, and copy this URL. Just go to your web page and paste it here. Then hit enter. You could see the registration and login. Let me just maximize this. You could see it over here, because we gave the same form, and you can see the status over here, because you could see the status on 127.0.0.1 is to 40:40. That's what it is mentioned. Now click on register. We give some simple usernames with Sunny, and I give the password is Sakit. That's it I mentioned. I click on register. You should see successfully registered. There you go. Let me just maximize it. So as it is successfully registered, now we'll go for /login, and we'll just make sure, sorry, it is /login, right? Not /register, /login. I'll just go for /login, and I'll give my username is Sunny and my password. I should see successfully logged in. There you go. You see, successfully logged in. That's it. Make sure you're good with Ngrok and go to your tunnel. You could see the username and password. Make sure that is how you are trying to get the result, and how do you see it, right? So even you could see the users data over here. You could just give /users/data. You could see the users data here, because we have just mentioned the same thing in our web page, because these are the users data. Just you could see, if it is reloading, just make sure you could see the reloaded web data, right? Because it takes some time. And let us try to register one more person over here. Let me go for registering. I'll just give in a reverse way. My username is Saket and my password is Sunny. I'm just only telling for you. Just click on register. So it is successfully registered, and it is when you go for /login. Sorry, you just remove this register, right? Just click on /login. Should be able to make sure you log in with this person detail, and you should be able to see successfully logged in. That's it, right? So that's how you are able to fetch the details, and how do you see the result, and you could also see the traffic status. Just make sure you are good to go with this. How does we have hosted our Ngrok, we have our Flask application on Ngrok, and how does we have made our Bootstrap libraries to be communicated with our Flask application. We just made one simple change. We have added 3 lines of code. How do we host our Flask application using Ngrok? By giving run with Ngrok, run the application, and app.run. Just make sure when you are running the Flask application on Ngrok, Be clear and make sure you don't use LAN. If you use LAN, your Ngrok cannot communicate directly. So when you just go to the home page, you could see it directly, login, register. So this is public URL. You can share it to your friend and he can log in, register, and make sure you can customize your code by giving in by mentioning it with the different button types over there. That is how we have successfully built our second project. How do we build an API in Python, where we have learned with the help of simple tags in the first phase, with the help of mark tags and paragraph tags and header tags. Then we have understood how to use Bootstrap libraries and the importance of Sublime Text. Make sure you refer with the documentation how to add the tags and how to add these buttons, because you see the button types which we have mentioned. Go to the web pages and add the grid system. That is the best way you learn. It's not copy paste over there. It's how you are efficiently learning the type of code, right? I hope you practice it. Just make sure these two projects are the stepping stones. Whatever you have learned till now, you try to implement it, and make sure if you have any queries, I am there to help you out. So we have successfully built a registration form in Python using Flask. We have also worked on CRUD operations and finally hosted Flask application on Ngrok. As Ngrok allows you to expose a web server running on your local machine to the internet. So whenever you start Ngrok, it will display a UI in your terminal with the public URL of your tunnel and the status, along with metrics information about connections made over your tunnel. I hope you have enjoyed watching it. If you have liked our content, please do hit like button and do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more useful content and exciting updates. Never hesitate to raise queries in the comment section. I'll be there to guide you. Thank you.